Hey.
Yep.
So y'all went to see your parents in Atlanta?
Yeah, my mom is living there, and then I have a sister, and yeah, that was all that was there this time around. My brother graduated high school this year and moved up to Virginia. Yeah, it was fun.
I guess it's cold in Virginia.
Yeah, even I don't know what the weather was like for y'all, but we had a semi-white Christmas in Georgia too. We got a little some snow that stuck at my mom's house, mostly ice, but yeah, it was nice.
We didn't get any of that, but we had a morning where it was 16 degrees. It was really cold this week.
Mm-hmm.
We had a heavy frost one day where the leaves were just white.
So did you have a tree die, or you just decided to cut it, or?
I wish you hadn't asked that.
Oh, sorry. At least it didn't fall on you. He had one fall on him a couple of years ago.
That was just a limb out here. Jeff Smith, who is now dead, and I just saw some letters that he wrote to me from jail, prison. He was down at Bibb County, Brent, Alabama, that correctional facility down there. But he was about lit up, and the chain got dull. The way that tree was leaning, if we'd had a sharp chain, it should have been one cut and it's down and gone. He was going round and round and round trying to get a dull chain to cut. And I had my truck and trailer over on this side. And I was going around there to move the truck. And he said, "Watch out, Doc." Kaboom. I guess the trailer took some of it off of me, but it glanced over my head, shoulder, and leg. Could have killed me.
It could have. So scary.
But on this one, the old ugly one that's still standing is heavily infested with carpenter ants. So the limb broke off a bit down on the patio and got my patio table and basketball goal and a few little minor things. Then the other one had a fork in it. And it looked like it was dead and cracking and had some of those ants in it. So we purposely cut it down. Have you ever used a wood splitter, Larry?
I have.
You're talking about something nice.
Oh, you're talking about a hydraulic one?
Yeah.
Well, no, I
Use
haven't.
the old-fashioned.
Oh, well, I got a sledgehammer and some wedges. You were the wood splitter in that case.
I was a wood splitter, yeah.
But I rented this thing up at a, what is it called? Robin Rents.
Right.
And if you get it on the weekend, after 2 o'clock, you keep it until Monday morning and pay for 1 day's rent.
Right.
This week and next week, which I didn't want to fool with, but you can get it on Wednesday because they're closed Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You could get it on Wednesday after 2 and only pay for a day and a half.
That's
But
good.
I looked at it, I said, "Oh, it's supposed to rain some of that time." But I mean, they are nice. You can, if it's horizontal, you just lay the log up on top. You don't want to mess with one any bigger than that. Of course, you can't lift one any bigger than that if it's 2 feet long.
Right.
But you just set it up in there, crank the motor, Honda engine, nice once we learn how to crank it. And
Yeah.
then you just go, and that big old blade goes right through the middle of it. If you need to, cut it in quarters, you can. But I mean, it was something else. We had, I'm gonna say at least a cord of wood
Is that right?
that we gave away.
Wow.
Just glad to get it out of here.
Yeah.
So Logan used to be John Adams, the basketball goal, but it's gone now.
I used to beat Kurt out there too. Kurt wasn't too happy about it.
Will said he never beat Kurt.
No?
What did he say?
I thought,
Sure you wasn't cutting you some slack.
so I think we played once and I beat him. And I was like, "You want to play again?" He was like, "No, I got to do something." He's like, "We got to go up there and open presents." And I just laughed, like thinking like he was.
didn't want to get embarrassed
Yeah,
again.
he didn't want to get embarrassed. He got mad. He was like, "I'll play you again if you want to play." So I was like, "That's fine. That's fine. We can go in."
You put the elk mount on it, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
John Adams got mad at Logan too.
John was like 6 or 7.
John
Oh,
said
he was
Logan
so-
was a cheater.
I think John was used to winning at his house. He was the little prince at their house, and then Logan came and wasn't cutting him any slack. And so I was like, "Hey, I usually win."
I
He
don't
was
think
pump
John-
faking.
I don't think John was ever much of a basketball player.
No.
He's pretty good as a
He
football player.
was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I went to one of those games.
Yeah, we went down to watch him play.
I think he wouldn't. He was a sophomore year or something. He wouldn't. He still wasn't very big.
What's he doing now?
John is going to Alabama.
I talked to him on the phone a couple weeks ago. Yeah, he said he took a year off or a semester off, and then this semester he was back.
Yeah, I think this fall was his last fall or whatever. Still, this fall was his first semester back.
Yeah, took a sabbatical year, and then yeah, I think he's just taking classes from his mama's house.
One time I saw him in a picture with Amanda, like he was working with her. As
He
an
was.
intern or something.
Yeah. He did work with her,
Good.
and I think that experience has changed his mind about what he wants to do for a major. I think he changed it to finance.
Yeah.
Good. Good for him.
Which reminds me, you're going to be a JD, MBA, and you know there's so many options out there. But one that I certainly hope you
Thank
would consider, I think anybody should consider, is real estate entrepreneurship. If you buy a piece of land, let's say it's undeveloped land, as long as you can buy it right and you see upside potential, you can't lose. Otherwise, if you buy a property that is already cash flowing, you know, it can basically pay for itself and appreciate it at the same time.
Yeah.
But somebody that's got the degrees that y'all have or are gonna have,
Yeah, we've already got one rental property that we
do
bought.
you?
Yeah, we bought a year and a half ago, or a year ago, about a year ago. So it's
Is
about
it cash flowing?
it's cash flowing okay. It's appreciated pretty
I
significantly.
mean, if it just breaks even, you're all right.
Yeah, so what we
Y'all are ahead of me, but that's what I was gonna suggest.
yeah, we've got 3 people that we rented out to, and we rented out individually per bedroom. And so one guy moved out, and then we increased the rent by $50 a month. And then when the other 2 move out, we'll increase the rent by $50 a month, and it'll be cash flowing a lot better than it was at the beginning.
So you've got a new person in that slot paying $50 more?
Yeah.
Good.
I wish I'd have had sense enough to do that, but I'm not sure I would have had the money to do it if I'd had sense.
You needed dollars, not cents, right?
I feel like there's a lot of land like 30 minutes outside of Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And Austin, Texas is just blowing up right now. Everyone's moving there. So that could be a good thing.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
So is Limestone County, Alabama, for
Yeah.
that matter.
Yeah.
And Madison.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Limestone County is blowing up.
East Limestone. Or,
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All kind of industries coming in there. Toyota built a huge factory there. And,
Well, the Toyota Mazda plant was the stimulus for all these other plants, I
Right.
think. And,
yeah,
you know, it just trickles on down to
yeah,
the building industry.
yeah. They built a brand new plant in Athens that feeds into that Toyota Mazda plant.
Really.
Uh-huh.
And did you know the FBI is coming to the Arsenal? They're having a big headquarters there and going to bring thousands of their folks.
I heard earlier they were.
Mhm.
Most of them transferring from DC
Right. Yeah.
or Northern Virginia, wherever.
And those
Yeah.
folks are tickled to death because the cost of living down here is so much cheaper. So if they had a $400,000 house up there, it wasn't much. But then they can get a beautiful house for $400,000 here, and they're like, "Yeah, sign me up."
I guess it's been kind of cyclic, like the automobile industry, you know, at one time was sort of centered in Michigan,
Right.
Detroit, and whatever, and that kind of ran its course, and now they're clearing out of there.
Right.
And Alabama apparently is doing very well on new industry and people moving in,
Right.
especially North Alabama.
Yeah. one of the things that they do here in Alabama is they give them a tax break for X number of years to come here. And,
Maybe too much.
yeah,
Oh, maybe.
yeah, probably so.
Well, what they
but-
say is if they give them a tax break, even if we don't collect state taxes on that industry, the people that come are paying state taxes on their income. And they're buying groceries and they're,
Yep.
buying
That's how it
property
works.
tax, they're paying property tax. So even if the industry itself isn't paying taxes, our income, our state tax went up because of the people that came to work there.
Well, I've read articles where you just about have to give them tax abatements in order to get them to come here.
Right,
Because
There's a
other
lot of
people are,
competition for
right?
right.
Yeah, I think some people don't like our governor. She's a little old lady. They call her Mamaw Ivy instead of Governor Ivy. It's kind of disrespectful, but she's done it. I think she's done a pretty good
I
job.
like her.
I do too. She's serious about this virus. She says, "Wear your mask." And then finally, she got on at one conference. She said, news conference. She said, "If y'all want to watch Alabama football in the fall, wear your mask."
Oh, that's so funny.
What about, what was I going to ask you about? There was something about,
Or they call her Meemaw, don't they?
Yeah.
Meemaw Ivy is what they call her.
really,
Yeah, let's see, Polaris is built at Greenbrier. Remington has built in Limestone County, Remington Guns.
I thought Remington was going out of business.
Well, they may be, I don't know, but they did build a factory here. And then General Electric Aircraft Engines, they're building in Limestone County.
Hmm.
So
Is this garbage?
a lot of, yeah, it's all garbage.
Okay.
But
That black bag is garbage, Julie, I don't know if it'll hold all of it.
I
If it
think
doesn't,
they,
just set it up and I'll get it.
I think the FBI is gonna employ about 4,000 people. So that'll be
Well,
good.
we'll be under constant surveillance. won't we?
Yeah. But they're locating on the arsenal, and they're building a big facility over there.
Mm.
So it's really booming here right now.
So you're not a big fan of the Jello, Logan?
That's fine.
It's a little chewy. You have to add gelatin to it, but it's so cute. And we had a young women leader who made it for the young women because of the different, how each value had a color.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make it for years. So it took me all day long yesterday because you have to make a layer and then
You
let
better
it.
eat it.
Aren't you glad it wasn't a 6 layer?
I beg your pardon?
Aren't you glad it wasn't a 6 layer?
Oh, that would have just been too much. But anyway, so
I'll give it a try.
Mom, where's your maps?
my what?
Your maps.
We do not have COVID in this house. Yeah.
He said map.
Oh, I thought you said
I
mask.
thought he did too. That's what I was looking for was a mask.
Anyway, if y'all can use that barbecue sauce, take it with you, because I got plenty in the fridge.
Okay.
We're making sure that we didn't bring it to you.
Oh,
That's true.
well, see, I got a weird
What's that?
philosophy on that.
The barbecue sauce.
Not so weird, maybe.
He said
Oh,
take
that
that.
I would like to get a minor case of it and build resistance, build antibodies,
Mhm.
but you don't know if you're gonna get a mild case or a bad case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we had a guy that worked with me that died.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
There's a guy, Mitch Markham lives quarter of a mile, half a mile straight through here. He's been in the hospital. I'm gonna show you all these things, and I don't see a really good example. That's a nest egg gourd,
Mhm.
and Mother Nature put some unusual, here's one, some unusual patterns on it. It
Interesting.
looks like an artist painted that.
It sure
Yeah,
And
does.
yeah.
after it gets mature, it starts developing that.
Hmm.
First time I saw it, I said, no, somebody stamped that on there.
That's what it looks like.
Okay, Larry, you probably know what that is.
Walnut.
Looks kind of like a persimmon.
Kinda. But when it was, before it dried up, it was round and green.
Oh, okay.
And it had a beautiful purple and white flower
Mm-hmm.
called a passion flower.
Mm-hmm.
Or we call them maypops.
Maypops. Yeah. Yeah. Sure do.
And that is,
Yeah, maypops grow wild around.
yeah, hickory nut.
Oh. We used to have these in our yard.
Yep.
They were a pain when you were trying to mow.
Sweet
Gotta
gum
pick 'em
balls
up.
are worse.
They,
Mhm.
Logan, when they were little, they would pick them up for Larry to mow.
We had, I wasn't gonna tell you all this story, it takes time, but I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna hush. We had a dog, I don't know if y'all ever saw him, I bought 2 beagle puppies, mainly for Percy Terry. He's 91 years old, gonna be 92 next year, obviously. But, every year we think this is gonna be his last year to hunt. So I got him 2 beagle puppies that are cute as they can be. And one is a very unusual color. The vets that I've talked to said they've never seen that color in a beagle.
Mhm.
So that makes you wonder, are they really full-blooded beagles or what? But they look like beagles,
Black and tan,
brown and tan.
brown and tan.
Oh,
If I could find one just like, I'm trying to find one now to breed her to.
Uh-huh.
And if I can't find one her color, I think I'm gonna breed her to a black and tan,
Mhm.
hoping that we might get 1 or 2 brown and tans out of the litter. But anyway, her mate was tricolored, the typical beagle color.
Right.
And Percy thought she was coming in heat. It turns out that she wasn't, and that's good because it saved me $25. And if they operate on them when they're in heat, they charge you more.
Oh, really?
But anyway, after the other one was spayed, I kept her over here for a couple of days because I didn't want to put her back in that muddy pen up at Percy's and, worry about getting infected.
Right.
Then we finally got a pallet that had some plywood on top of it and got some wheat straw, and we fixed them up good before I took it back. But while I had her down here, I was feeding her, and I first noticed what looked like a stray cat that was shooting out the garage door when I opened it, eating that food, I'm pretty sure. And then we've got red foxes, several of them around here. One of them raised their babies right under that storage house next door. And that was something to see this past spring. Those little foxes would come out at different times. I got me a game camera and got them on, that a few times. But anyway, I saw that fox go by this morning, and I noticed the cat food or dog food pan is empty. So I don't know what's been eating it, but I think a cat and maybe a fox. And no telling what else.
Right. Possum, skunk.
Yep. Coon. The dinner was delicious.
Oh, so good.
Did they feed y'all on the plane? Not from Atlanta to here, probably.
No, I ate just as soon as we went to, we got there and got nachos for me, and I ate real quick. And then, Kristen just finished eating. Mama's printed out a few maps here of Headland.
Yeah, I just went to Google Maps, and so this is currently what Headland looks like, and it. But I was trying to get on here to show you. I don't know if you need any glasses or not. But yeah, can you see anything that makes sense, like where the Methodist Church is? And
King Street.
yeah,
I think you're all south.
I tried to get Nana's, Brenda Avenue house, and then the 4th Street. That's why I taped so many maps together, was to be able to show where Logan knows where Nana lived at the end, but.
Well, the way you got them taped together, see, there's Headland Mortuary, which is kind of on the
Jiffy's?
south side of town.
Is that by Jiffy's?
It used to be by Piggly Wiggly. And Jiffy is now Diane's Florist, I think.
Oh, was Jiffy's on the corner by the mortuary though?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, that's why I call Jiffy's. Oh, it's
But anyway,
Something
from
else.
Headland Mortuary, you come on down Main Street, then Nana's house would be right on down here somewhere. But where we lived was well, that's Headland National Bank,
yeah.
Church Street. So see, Grandmother Van lived on Church Street.
So see, I tried to get all of them on here. So yeah, there's Church Street, and I wrote 107, and I think that was her house, and then 105 that would have been Curtis and what was her name?
Ain't Gussie.
Gussie. And then that was 103. And then here's 102 Forest. And then 104, which you said was Nanny Crump, and I didn't remember that. I just knew it was Mark Willis. That's where I got my first marriage proposal.
Mark Willis was after Annie Crump.
I
Bonnie
didn't know.
and William Willis bought it. See,
But see, I was about 5 when he proposed to me there
well, why
on
didn't
top
you
of the
take him up
propane
on it?
tank. Well, he was shorter than I was, and I was worried he wouldn't.
I don't know if he ever got married.
He didn't, and he's still shorter than me, so it didn't work out. He's my Facebook friend.
He's a nice
He
guy.
is a very nice guy. But so if I was about 3 or 4 or 5 and playing with Mark Willis, I think Nanny Crump may have moved before I was born.
Probably.
So that's why I don't know that Nanny Crump lived there till you
See,
said
she was
that.
in a nursing home forever. And D-Daddy and James Earl Woods, her nephews, went down there
Every day. They took such good care of her, and they never knew when he was coming. He came early in the mornings. They came more than once, and she was always clean. She was always taken care of because they knew those nephews. She didn't have any children. They knew those nephews were coming.
You say she didn't have any children. Do you want to hear a shocking story?
I do, because it's probably the one Nana told me and Betsy and Sid, and we went
So
about
did I.
Charles.
See, I have some reason to believe, without knowing for sure, that Charles Woods was her natural child. And, you know, they always told us that Uncle Ples and Annie adopted him out of a
Who were brother and sister.
Yeah, but see, Annie was married to Charles Crump.
Right.
And I think Uncle Ples might have been married to some woman that didn't work out.
Okay.
But whether it's true or not, it really doesn't matter at this point. But I'm like you. When I first heard it, I said, you gotta be kidding.
We were sitting at Nana's dining room table. She was sitting at the end like she always is. Betsy and I were here, and Sid was across. And Nana is just talking like she always does. And then she said, and when Ples brought that baby home from California, and we all knew that he had brought it home from Birmingham and passed it off as adopted, but really it was Annie's baby. And we were all like, I mean, these people are all dead. And for all I'm 57. All these years, we thought he was adopted. And now to find out that it was really Nanny's son. We called her
Probably.
Nanny, but her name was Annie.
Anyway, see, they got him supposedly in Aniana or up there in one of those Blount County orphan homes or whatever.
Right.
Which, I mean, he could have gone there for a while. Let's say she had him in the hospital and they took him to the orphanage and then they adopted him. I don't know. But the interesting story about Charles Woods is when he was about 18 or 19 years old, he tried to volunteer for the U.S. Air Force or U.S. Army. Air Force didn't come into effect until
Yeah, it was called the Army
1947.
Air Corps.
It sure was. Sure was. So I don't remember at what point it was, but Charles was about the same age as my daddy. And in fact, Charles lived in the house with Mom, Kate, and Pap, and Daddy and Toot, for years. But
First of all, he was a beautiful man.
he
Very
was a handsome man until
handsome.
he joined the Royal Air Force. He was too young to get in the U.S. Air Force, but he RAF in Canada, and was flying fuel over the hump in India. In fact, I think he was training a pilot, and they crashed, and it burned him so terribly, he was unrecognizable. And he had, I don't know how many surgeries. He was horrible. He really looked horrible. But they put him, he might have been head of the prison board. He ran for governor 2 or 3 times, and people said, well, I like what he stands for, but I can't, I can't vote for him.
He
From
just
man that
didn't
looks
have,
like that.
he didn't
like
have
that.
ears. It had burned off his face.
It's
When he would
terrible.
kiss me, I was a little girl, and I'd sit on that couch with Nana at Nana's house, and he would want to hold me and hug me and kiss me, and he would drill on my face, and it was all I could do to not shudder or pull away from him. He couldn't help it, but yeah, he just looked so bad. But then you see the pictures of him as a young man, and he was so handsome.
Once he came back from the Air Force before he got burned, and he apparently had just gotten his pilot's training or whatever, his wings.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me a pair of his wings that I so wish I had today. And I was a spoiled brat, I guess, because I looked at it and I wasn't that impressed with those wings. And I was too young to understand the importance of them, and he was giving me something precious to him, but I didn't have sense enough to know that I should appreciate
How
it.
precious to
Yeah.
take care of them, yeah.
But anyway, he reminded me later on that I said, Charles, you know this is not all you brought me. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't a pair of wings.
But I think the story was, wasn't he in a plane and it was that he got shot and he was hoping to be able to make it over a hill or something and
Over the
land it?
mountains. It was the mountains on the edge of China and India, wasn't it? What are they?
That's a more
Those are
Himalayas.
Hey, the Himalayas. That's what the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a more impressive story.
Oh,
But I believe I'm right that number one, he did not get shot. That
okay.
he was on a training mission trying to train this young pilot, and the guy didn't do what he was supposed to do, and they crashed.
Okay.
I think.
And he's the only one that lived in the plane.
I don't know.
I think so. I think he survived. He was just burned terribly, but nobody else
You
did.
remember Tom Atkinson that used to run the Wheeler Wildlife Refuge?
Mm-hmm.
He was burned pretty badly too, and all crippled up and blind. And well, he was from Columbia, Alabama, which is near Headland.
Right.
And well, that reminds me of another story I got to tell y'all. He was taken to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, which was a burn center at that time.
Okay.
And Miriam was Charles' wife, and
She
either
was a
Miriam
saint.
said it,
She
or
was a saint.
she was, or Tom Atkinson's wife said it. When one of them found out that the other one was there, they said, "You're not going to believe who is down the hall in one of those rooms." And they said, "Who?" They said either Tom Atkinson or Charles Woods, and they were both in that hospital at the same time. And Tom Atkinson got to be the head of Wheeler Wildlife Refuge, and he was an amazing man. You know, he couldn't see, but he could do a lot of stuff despite of his what you
Handicaps.
call it? Yep.
And Charles got to be a multimillionaire and owned the Dothan TV station and had 9 children with Miriam and no telling how many else with other ones. I mean, he was a mess. But anyway.
I don't think all of them were Miriam's. We later found out.
Yeah.
Whatever. But let me tell you all this story. You might have heard some of it. Back in 1958, after I had left Headland, I graduated in 57. After I left Headland, a bank was robbed over in Columbia, Alabama. And see, Columbia used to be in Henry County. All of Houston County used to be in Henry County. And Henry County supposedly is the mother county of about 7 or 9 counties. Not all of them, but like parts of Pike
Yep.
and Barber and Geneva and this and that and the other were part of Henry County, which was huge at the time. But in 1958, a bank was robbed over in Columbia, Alabama. It turns out it was robbed by 3 Anglin brothers who had a toy pistol. Alfred, John, and Clarence were their names. And it becomes real important here in a minute. Okay, they caught them up in Ohio, put them in jail, all 3 of them. They broke out. They wound up sending them back to Kilby, and Alfred didn't escape, but John and Clarence did. Got away from there. They put them in the Fort Leavenworth, not Fort Leavenworth Hospital, Army camp, but Leavenworth prison.
Federal prison.
Maximum.
It's a separate thing, isn't it, from Fort
Yeah,
Leavenworth?
it is.
Okay. Anyway, they broke out of there.
My goodness.
Guess what? Next stop, they joined Al Capone on Alcatraz Island, the Rock. Okay, they joined up with a guy named Frank Morris, who was the mastermind of it. And they proceeded over a period of months and years to dig tunnels. They made these paper mache heads that they put under their sheets so that when they came by for bed check and the guard shined the light in there, it looked like they were in bed. Smart. Frank Morris was supposed to be the smartest one. Anyway, they escaped from Alcatraz. There is no doubt in my mind they escaped. Now, the only question is, did they survive?
Did the sharks get
Yeah,
them?
and we think, they talk about the water being so cold, the current being swift, sharks out there and all that. Well, if you research it a little bit, there was a ferry boat that went back and forth from Alcatraz over to San Francisco that hauled the kids and maybe the wives too, to go grocery shopping and take the kids over there to school. Well, we think they, evidence after all this happened, they found an extension cord tied to that barge, or whatever they call that boat. And these guys made rafts. They took raincoats. I don't know where they got their glue, but they made rafts. And seemed like they made something else. But anyway, they had it all planned. Of course, it was thought that nobody could escape from Alcatraz. And I believe the guards got real lackadaisical, and they just said, we ain't got to worry about all that. And people had tried before and didn't make it. Well, I am convinced that even the U.S. government, and if the government had any sense, they would have said, all right, guys, y'all beat us, y'all got out. If you will come forth and tell us your story, we will give you 100% complete pardon. That's what I wish they had done, but they didn't. And it was later thought that Clarence and John were seen down in Brazil. They had pictures of them. And I don't know what happened to Frank Morris, but they did find some bones. And Alfred was left in Kilby in Montgomery, and later came up dead. The guard said that he tried to crawl out. He got electrocuted, and then he ended up getting buried down in Ruston, Florida. And my friend, do you ever meet Shelby Bostic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shelby and Karen lived down there in Lutz, Florida, which was near Ruston. And when I told them about it, I said, y'all go down there and check them out, find out, about it. Anglin was their name. It is strongly believed that they worked on Granddaddy Van's farm back in the day. See, they were from Blakely, Donaldsonville, there were about 14 of them, sharecroppers, farm laborers that moved around wherever they could. And Mama and several of her brothers have told me they remember some Anglins working on Granddaddy's farm, which is just across the Chattahoochee River from those places in Florida. Columbia's on this side and Hedman and Dothan on this side. But I just think it's tremendously interesting, and I've spent too many hours researching it, checking it out. And like I say, I firmly believe that they escaped.
Those Scots.
Everybody agrees with that.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't know is if they set foot on land, and there have been, a lot of stories saying there was a boat seen out in the bay, San Francisco Bay that night, and they could see a light, and the mafia has been implicated, and who knows what all went on. Very interesting story.
Wow.
But now, to put it simple to you, Forest Street went this way.
Mhm.
That's where we live, 102. Mama Kate and Pat, where Sam lives now, 108 Forest Street. So Forest Street's this way. It was unpaved when I was a kid, and the trucks would get stuck out there in front. They made a big mud hole, and Sam and I used to get out there and swim in the mud hole, which is probably about as wide as this table and about that deep. But that's before they paved it. But anyway, Forest Street goes on up toward town, and then Main Street goes out west. That's where Grandmother Van lived. All right, Mama Kate and Pap lived in 108. Miss Morrell Riley lived next. Annie Crump lived next, and then our house. And going the other way, it was the Methodist parsonage on the corner, Uncle Kurt and Aunt Gussie Solomon, and then Grandmother Van. But what your mama was telling you is you could go out of Mom and Daddy's house, out the back door, and at one time there was a fence. So the reason they had that style was because there was a fence. So
Yeah, that's what I remember. So it's like little steps. You got up to the fence, you walked up steps, then you walked down steps, and you're in Grand Van's backyard.
Exactly, that's what it was.
Called a style? That's what it's
Well, that's
called?
what a lot of people call
Okay.
it, style.
Mhm.
So what was the address of the house that you grew up in?
102 Forest Street.
102.
But see, we lived with Grandmother Van during the war because Daddy was gone in the Army.
So I'm going to show you right here. So this is
Kristen, if you get tired of this, we'll give
102
you a
right
break.
here.
Yeah,
This
this
is where
is what they
Daddy
call it.
lived with Nana and Granddaddy. And then 2 houses down was his grandparents, the Brannons. And this is where Annie Crump lived, he said, but I never knew her to
The
live
Mark
there.
Willis house.
That's where my boyfriend Mark lived when I was 5. But then if you walk straight out Nana's backyard, this is where Grand Van lived. So you walk, this was Nana's backyard, and then there was this pasture that belonged to Granddaddy Brannon, Pap. All this land behind his house was his.
Sam and Sid wound up with it.
That's great. So you'd walk out Nana's back door into her backyard, then in this pasture, and then you'd climb over that little, they had steps built there for us so that we could go in her backyard. So we just climb over that fence, and then we were at Grand Van's house. So that's, he
So
was
you're
just,
right by the Brannons, right by the Vans. Where were the Woods and the Solomons?
Way off.
Well,
The Woods built 102 Forest Street, and I think 104 Forest Street back.
the Woods built, well, okay, that's the first I've heard this.
Really? In fact, Uncle Curry Woods built 102 Forest Street, and I think his brother built the Mark Willis house. I
I
think
did not know that.
Uncle Grady.
Okay, and did they build it for Annie?
No, they built it for themselves,
Okay,
and then Charles Crump and Annie got it later.
okay,
I
okay.
think that anything I tell you is subject to
Okay,
confirmation.
being a lie.
well, let me, speaking of 102, let me tell you what Nana told me about that. So Nana and Granddaddy are very young, and they get married, and they move in with Pap and Mama Kate, who were just around the corner from the Vans. Because was Toot still home then? Toot was 5 or 6 years older than Granddaddy. Granddaddy's 19 years old, 5 years older. So Toot's 24. I think I looked, and she wasn't married at that time.
She wasn't
So was she still
school
there?
teacher, and she quite often, would be in a boarding house wherever she
Where
worked.
she was teaching,
Yeah.
so she probably wasn't home, or she would come home some.
Sometimes she would, and I used to sleep with her up there in that front room. And she called me her little heater,
Oh,
and Daddy called her sister. So I was a little squirt and tried to say sister, and I ended up calling her Toot. That's where Toot
Okay.
came from.
I did not know that,
It
okay.
did.
He called her Toot, yeah, I mean, we all called her Toot, I didn't know where that came from.
Eleanor
Sister.
Maud was her name.
And Maud is her middle name, because I looked, like in her obituary, and it just said Eleanor Shaw, Brannon Shaw, and it didn't have the Maud part, but I thought Maud was her middle
It
name.
was.
Okay, sister, and Wayne couldn't say it and called her Toot, that's so sweet.
Oh, me. But anyway, I was born in that middle bedroom. Betsy was telling me yesterday that she remembers going in that middle bedroom. They had a mantelpiece, and a fireplace,
The
and a
Vicks cough
grandfather.
drops,
Huh?
the Vicks cough drops.
I don't know about that. But they had had a clock that looked just like that one right yonder.
Mm-hmm.
And it would, or maybe not just like it,
But yeah, on the
but
middle.
on the half hour, it would gong. And then on the hour, it would hit every one of them. 12, look out. But eventually you got so you just kind of blocked it out and didn't hear all that racket and slept through it.
Well, when we'd go see Pap, and he was old, because that's when the little lady that did the tatting, I forgot her name, but it was after Mama Kate died, and that other lady came and helped him.
Yeah.
And I think she lived there,
She
because
did.
he was old and needed help, and she just
I
moved
should
in.
know her name, but I can't think of it.
I knew it too, but I can't remember. But we would go visit him. So you'd walk in the front door, not to the first bedroom, but the second bedroom, turn to the left, and he'd be in there.
Edna.
Miss Edna, yes. And so he had a clock in the middle of the fireplace, and on both sides of the clock on that fireplace were Vicks cough drops. I mean, I hate to say hundreds, probably 30, probably maybe 50, I don't know, boxes and boxes and boxes on both sides stacked up. And I could just remember sitting there and staring at all those cough drops and thinking, I don't know, I'm 5'8".
You rather would have had peppermint sticks, wouldn't you?
Or Luden's cherry cough drops. Now those, I like the Luden's, those taste good, but these are not the clear
Pat
menthol.
was noted for buying peppermint candy and going to the liquor store and getting some whiskey and making a cough syrup.
Oh, that's what he called it. Maybe that's why he had all those cough
But I
drops. Y'all
think
got a bad
I
cough.
think that was fairly common, back in those days.
Yeah. But he was so sweet. And he wasn't a very big man, because you know how big Granddaddy was. Our Granddaddy was 6'5". I mean, a tall man.
Not
Very-
that tall.
not how tall.
6'1" or 2".
Oh, is that tall? He just seems huge to me. He was it
You were
really.
little.
Even now, though, I mean, I'm grown. He hadn't been dead that long.
I think
But
he's
really-
about 6'2".
Was he
That's what I would
6'2"?
think.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought he
But
was
if
so
you look
tall.
at pictures, he's a little bit taller than I am, and I
Okay.
think I was 6'1". And
Okay.
one picture's got Sid, Sam, me, And then,
Just gotta go still.
Well, anyway, I was born in that middle bedroom,
Okay.
I'm told. And Daddy's first cousin, Dr. Thomas B. Woods, was an OBGYN doctor. Raised in Headland, he went to Dothan. His practice was in Dothan. But he delivered me. And I was a breech birth. And Daddy would tell me that Thomas would say, do this, do that. And Daddy's about to faint, just watching the whole thing. But anyway, I was born backwards. And that gives me an excuse to have been backwards all of my life.
But just imagine poor Nana, an 18, 19-year-old, I guess 19 by this time, 19-year-old girl having a baby in a home, not in a hospital. Her husband's cousin is delivering. And the baby's coming out but first. My gosh, I just think this must have been horrible. I wonder if
It was
Grandma
commonplace in those days.
I guess. But yeah, poor Nana, poor Nana.
She made it.
So then what Nana said was, that y'all lived with them, and I don't know how long, I don't know at what point that y'all moved to 102, but she said Graham Van bought that house for y'all
She did.
because she said,
And I think paid $2,000 for it. And then see, after Daddy went into service in World War II, Liv and Hank Stroop moved into that house while we were living with Grandmother Van.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And then, once they needed it back, they
They
got it
moved them
back.
out.
So you rented it out.
They did, I guess.
Yeah,
But,
102.
well, see, Liv
and
was
Nana.
Mama's first cousin. Aunt Mamie Oates
Yeah.
and Grandmother Van were sisters.
So Liv is Aunt Mamie's daughter.
Mhm.
Liv. Liv Street.
Elizabeth, I guess, they called her Liv. I don't know who's taking this dictation, Logan, you or your mom?
I've got I'm recording it on the audio. So
How are you?
yeah,
On your phone?
yeah, on my phone.
Well, like I told you, it's more than we're gonna cover in one day. 'Cause
That's fine.
anything you wanna talk about, it leads to something else and something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah,
And I don't know how interested or how much detail you wanna go into.
no, that's good. So
Well,
yeah,
why
one,
don't we take a break take
Okay.
not take a break, but change from what we're talking about and go to any specific questions you might have.
so I want to know about like what the Brands, the Woods, the Vans, the Solomons did. Like your grandparents and great grandparents, what did they do for a living?
Granddaddy Van, whose picture I have, we need to show you all those pictures before we leave. But Granddaddy Van had a dry goods store in Headland. And he was a pretty good businessman. He wound up owning, 1,200 acres of land maybe. And the reason I'm saying that, Betsy and I talked about this yesterday, that when the Depression hit, see, Granddaddy Van died in 1933. Grandmother Van was pregnant with May May, who was born in January of 34, 4 or 5 months later. And there she is with 9 kids right in the middle of the Depression. And Uncle Bob Solomon, her brother, was her advisor. And he said, Kate, what you need to do in order to be able to pay taxes on the rest of this land and keep it was to sell a place they call Lodiva. And oh, believe me, the whole family would almost kill to get that back, but it's something they had to do in order to keep the rest of it. And they did all right.
How do you spell Lodiva?
I'm assuming Lodipa.
Okay.
And how they came up with that, I don't know. But anyway, why am I telling you all that?
I'm saying what did each of your
Yeah,
grandparents do? So he was
Okay.
the drugstore owner.
No,
Or
dry
just
goods.
Dry
Dry
goods.
Yeah.
Dry goods.
That was
Clothing
Granddaddy
store.
Van. Grandmother Van had worked as a clerk, back in her younger days at the 5 and 10 cent store. I don't know, maybe even.
She worked for him.
I was going to say.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just remember that. But
Yeah.
she had several jobs growing up, like we all did. I cannot remember not ever working. We either were mowing grass or picking up pecans or picking cotton it's just a way of life. Nobody had to make you do it. They just expected you to do it.
Yeah.
And we had to wear clothes made out of feed sacks and flour sacks. Not really. Some people did.
He was the best dressed. What I started to tell you, Nana said that at elementary school, he would go to school in the morning. I guess take Sam with you, I don't know. But go to school in the morning and then walk home for lunch. And he said it was a few blocks. And she would have a hot lunch for him. And then he would go back in the afternoon. But when he was home for lunch, he would get a bath and get his clothes changed and go back to school.
After
something
that, I
fresh.
started eating in the lunchroom at some point.
She wanted him to be fresh when he went back. So, of
There's
course,
a-
he was the best dressed one there.
Another, well, she always told us you may not have but 2 sets of clothes, but they're going to be clean. If I had to wash them tonight and send you back to school in them tomorrow.
And that's, I mean, she just was all about being clean and looking your best. And she just, that was her. And she took a lot of pride in how good her babies looked, how clean and precious. And so one day she sent me off. I would go down there and spend time with her in the summers. And one day she sent me to the Baptist Vacation Bible School. I have a feeling she put me in every single Bible school she could just to keep me busy while I was down there because she worked in my Uncle Jim's dentist office as his office manager. So she sends me off in this beautiful little dress, my hair pulled up in a ponytail with a bow. She said I was perfect when I left that morning. And wouldn't you know, the next week in the Headland Observer on the front page was a picture of the Baptist Vacation Bible School. And there I am on the front row with my hair out, dirty. I've been running around having a good time. And she was horrified because that is not how she sent me to Vacation Bible School that morning. But that's what I looked like when they made the picture. So that was kind of bad for her.
Well, another noteworthy story is when I was 5 and Sam was 3, I asked Grandmother Van, I forgot now what it was, if she had any Coca-Colas. We call them Cocos instead of Coca-Cola. And I don't think she did. Anyway, she gave me a little bit of money, like a dime or something. And I think we were supposed to be getting some peppermint candy, maybe Coca-Colas. But here we go, walking from her house where we were living up to the Methodist Church, one more block down to Walden Motor Company. And the only caution light in town was right there on that corner of Main Street. Well, Main Street was this way, and West Church Street that way. Well, like a fool, I looked and saw a car coming and ran on across, and I made it just fine. My little 3-year-old brother, whose hand I should have been holding and leading him across the street, didn't make it. A car hit him, busted his head wide open, broke his leg. I don't know what else it did to him. Have you ever heard that story? And so I went home and told them that Sam was dead. And Mom said,
Well, I think he was lying on the ground and there's blood on him.
I don't know, but the people that hit him were from North Alabama somewhere, and they loaded him up in their car and took him to Dothan, to the hospital. Mom said she had been out working in the yard, and whatever clothes she had on, she had a safety pin pinning them up. And so she called Sybil Holman, who was the wife of the mortician. Well, she and her husband ran the Headland Mortuary, to find out if Sam's body were over there. And Sybil said, no, he's not here. Said, but you just wait. I'll come and get you, and we'll find out where he is. So I guess Mama changed clothes in the meantime, and they take off to Moody Hospital in Dothan and got down there and found him alive.
We'll have to ask Betsy the details because I don't know if she had time to change clothes because I remember the story that Graham Van brought Nana something. Maybe it was shoes. Maybe she had time to change into a different duster that didn't have a safety pin, but Graham
Well,
Van
at that
thought she
point in
needed
time,
new shoes.
changing clothes shouldn't be your first priority anyway.
Right. But I do remember that Graham Van brought her something a little more appropriate to the hospital once everything settled down. So that's where Nana got it. The Graham Van thought things
Well,
had
do
to be
you ever, when you were living down there, visiting down there, do you ever remember seeing black people walking down the sidewalk with a bundle of laundry on their head? I did. They would put the clothes inside of a sheet, I guess, and tie it up.
That's what Africans do. They'll put like a big
Well,
belt balance.
these people were of African heritage. And so they'd be, it freed their hands.
Yeah.
And I guess if they balanced it right.
Gives
Wow.
you good posture.
Yeah, they must have strong neck muscles, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen like baskets, wicker, woven baskets that they hold on their heads. Mostly the women, and they can.
Oh, you were in what, Uganda?
No, that's
I was in
Tommy.
Uruguay. Tommy was in
Uganda.
Ethiopia and Kenya.
In
Right, was it-
Uganda and Ethiopia, I think.
Yeah,
Tommy was.
Tommy Green.
Okay. Well, Will had the opportunity to go over there. I've forgotten which country it was they went to, but he was working for this guy down in Auburn doing a fellowship like.
Mhm.
And Dr. Moore, M-O-H-R, was trying to develop, you know, what BT cotton is, Bacillus thuringiensis that Monsanto had.
Oh, yeah, they make it,
Resistant.
yeah, Roundup resistant.
Well, there's
Bug-
bollweevil
yeah,
resistant
bug
too. I
resistant.
don't know what all it was. But
Okay,
anyway, it was called BT, and they somehow impregnated the cotton seeds with that DNA from the bacteria. Well, anyway, that was a great idea, and Monsanto did very well with it. And then this doctor down in Auburn that Will was working for was trying to do the same thing for weevils that attack sweet potatoes. Apparently, sweet potatoes are a staple crop in Africa. And so what they were trying to do was come up with a product, or maybe they're trying to make the potato seedlings resistant to those beetles, which would tremendously improve their crop yield.
right.
But anyway, Will got a chance to go over there, and his boss was Bill Moore, and the guy that went with him was an Englishman named Phil. And Will told me that Dr. Moore may not have liked it, but he and Phil hit it off real well. And they probably were sitting around drinking a beer. I don't know what they were doing, eating. And Phil said, "Hey, we're quite a trio, aren't we? Phil, and Will." And that was a fringe from having been in that program and getting to go to Africa.
Yeah, that's neat. That's real neat.
And then Dr. Moore got hired by Monsanto and left and went to St. Louis. And the new guy that took over didn't like Will. Will didn't like him.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was Will's fault, I'm sure. But they about took his typing away from him and put him on the, what do you call it when you're flunking out?
Probation.
Yeah, I don't know if probation is the name I'm looking for, but it means the same thing.
Yeah.
He was not on there.
And that was when he was in his master's program at Auburn?
Yeah.
I thought it was, yeah.
I
That's
don't think he
ridiculous.
didn't ever finish it. And he had a camera that belonged to the department that they were trying to get him to turn in, and he was kind of holding it out, trying to hold them hostage with their camera, but it didn't work very well. And there's a guy from East Lawrence, Don Smith, who was a coach at East Lawrence, and he had a brother, Ron Smith, who's a PhD down at Auburn. And Ron would come over and talk to Dr. Moore and borrow some petri dishes and stuff that he needed. Well, finally, Dr. Moore turned it over to Will, just let him get him whatever he wanted. Well, lo and behold, when that new boss took over the department, he found out Will was giving their stuff away. Not that it was hurting him, but I think what hurt him most of all is they were kind of circumventing him, just bypassing him, and he felt like he was the one that ought to be
Making
passing out.
decisions.
Giving the favors.
Yeah, but anyway, that's
Mm.
I mean, life is full of stories just like that, and I'm sure y'all have been through your share of them.
Mm.
Everywhere you turn, it's something different, something interesting. This one right here is something. Where'd you go first? Calhoun?
Yep.
And you got your, what you call it?
Associate in
Associate
it was in
degree.
pre-nursing, because I was going straight to UAH.
But
after
you
that.
were, you didn't get an associate degree from Calhoun?
It was an associate in pre-nursing or something like that, general studies or something. I didn't go to nursing at Calhoun.
Okay, all right. Then you go to UAH, got your nursing degree.
Mhm.
Then you go to UNA and
Yeah.
get your master's.
Yeah.
Then you go to Alabama
Yep.
and
Just
get your
kept getting
doctorate.
bigger and bigger. Finally got to Alabama.
See, isn't that amazing? And we don't even give you credit by calling you doctor.
That's
Dr.
okay.
Brown.
I did it for the paycheck, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have a pay scale and they show how your income goes up with your degree. And I was like, that's a pretty big jump. I'll just keep on going. One more.
What about, are you still working?
Yeah.
What about you, Larry? You still working?
I am. Down the road here.
Yeah.
This-
Nucor.
This is what they gave him for Christmas.
Yeah, ULA.
Oh, yeah, ULA, not Nucor.
Yeah.
What was ULA before?
Boeing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, that's a nice jacket.
Yeah, it is. That's my Christmas present.
I've got one back here that says, I'll probably have to go get it and show it to you. Torrey.
Mhm.
Kenny Dutton, that used to live up here, was working for Torrey.
Mhm.
And Kenny couldn't get along with anybody. He's changed jobs about 4 times since I've known him. But it had Torrey written in white, and then underneath it, he had taken a Mark's Lot and written Sucks.
Oh. Does he still work there? He
No.
left. Okay.
Well, he's been through a couple more jobs since then.
Well, I was going to tell you about Graham Van. Nana told me that she worked for her future husband. She worked for Sam Van. So her name's Emma Kate Solomon, and she's 14 years younger than him, and she works at the dry goods store as his secretary, accountant, bookkeeper, whatever. She maybe waited on customers, I don't know. But that he was kind of a in charge kind of person and hollering out orders and do this, and she would say, yes, sir, Mr. Van, yes, sir, Mr. Van. She's a hard little worker. She did whatever he said. Well, then after several months, years working for him, he one day says, Miss Kate, I think we should get married. I think you should marry me. And she says, yes, sir, Mr. Van.
I've never heard that story.
Nana told me that's how he proposed. And so they got married. Well, then, years later, I'm engaged to Larry, 14 years older than me. We go, I don't think
Did you call him Mr. Brown?
no. I don't think Nana and I walked the backyard. I think we probably drove to Graham Van's house, drove around the corner. But anyway, we go in there, go on the back porch where Graham Van's sitting in a rocking chair. And Nana says, well, Mama, Julie is getting married to a man who is 14 years older than her. What do you think about that? And Graham Van didn't say nothing. So she's rocking in her little rocking chair. And she just looked at me and smiled. And she said, I'd rather be an old man's sweetheart than a young man's slave. And then she just kept on rocking. And I was like, well, I don't want to be anybody's slave. I don't care how old they are. I don't want to be a slave.
Van was a smart lady, I'm telling you. Head full of
She's
sense.
precious, and she didn't say a whole lot. Nana said a lot. Now, we got that gene, but Graham Van did not say. I wonder if Granddaddy Van was a big talker like us.
I'm sure. He was a dominant person. And of course, after she lost him, he was 55 when he died. See, and she was pregnant with her last baby when he left here.
Mm.
But Uncle Bumps, his name was Felix.
But we called him Uncle Bumps
They
because he had a
had
rash when he was a
9
baby.
kids.
So they called him Bumps his whole life.
Jack, Sam, Edith, Mama, who's Grace, Felix, Emily, Jim,
Kate
Helen, and
Ray
Mamie.
May.
That's the 9. But anyway, Uncle Bumps one time wanted to go to the movie in Headland. And he went in there and asked his mama for a dime to go to the movie. And she said, I don't have it. Well, what she was thinking is, I got 9 youngins.
I don't
and
have
if
9
I
dimes.
don't have 9 dimes. If I give it to one, then I, feel obligated to give the rest of them the money. And he said, I was told that he said, do you mean to tell me that you don't have one thin dime? And I always wanted to find a thin dime, that was so thin that the numbers and writing had worn off of it, and put it in an envelope and sent it to him, said, to say, here's that thin dime you needed.
He was so precious. Didn't he have a clothing store?
Mhm.
And he had grape bubble gum that he carried in his pockets. And whenever we would go down and see him at his store, he would pull that bubble gum, and it'd be in a little clear plastic wrapper, and he'd give us grape bubble gum. He was so
Really?
sweet. A funny story about him. Nana said that Graham Van went to visit somebody, and it might have been Gussie and Curtis, or I don't know if there was somebody else in the neighborhood that she would have walked to visit. But she went over to visit somebody and left the children at home. Her husband's dead. And all of a sudden, there's this ruckus. And whoever she's visiting says, do you think that's your children? And it would probably have been Felix that was causing the trouble. He was the one that was all, and Graham Van said, no, it is not my children, because I locked up Felix Bumps in the corn crib before I left. And then whoever was with her, one of the little children had come with her, one of the little girls, Edith or somebody, said, oh no, Mama, he was out when I came on over. Felix is out of the corn crib. Or I let him out. I think that's what she said. I let him out before I came over. And Graham Van's like, I gotta go. If Felix was out of the corn crib, it was bad.
They had a coal bin, a smokehouse, all in their backyard right in town. Of course, that was back in the early 1900s. So
But she locked him up in the corn crib so she could go visit a neighbor because she couldn't trust him.
What's wrong with
Just
that?
running loose. And then one of the sisters felt, I guess he was hollering and carrying on smokes. The sister just let him out. But then there was a ruckus, and Graham Van's thinking, oh no, it's not my children that are making that because my troublemaker is locked up in the corn crib. Oh no, he's not. I let him out.
Well, he fell out of you probably don't remember the barn. Probably was gone. But where you walked over the style gate, they had a great big barn that had a loft in it. And supposedly at one time he fell out of the loft down on top of a cow. I don't think it hurt him. But
Or the cow. He was just a mess. He was
all right,
so
Logan, we
sweet.
have.
All right, so I got
What
the
do-
Vans are dry goods store owners. What did the Solomons do for a living?
Let's see. Do you remember Julie?
I don't.
Was Grandmother Van's daddy a preacher? One of those Solomons. Let's see. That information that's over yonder, Logan, is going to have all that in it. Gonna have all
Oh,
of it.
Dad's got a whole bunch of information.
All
you
the
can take.
Solomon and Van stuff you want to know is going to
Okay.
be in there.
Okay.
Great.
And then on the other side of the family, Pat was obviously a Brannon. His mother was Amanda Smith
Okay.
from Dooley County, Georgia.
That's Tommy and Amanda, right?
Yep. And then on Mama Kate's parents were Woods. Her dad was a Woods and her mama was a Baxter. And back in those days, those names that I just mentioned, if you were named any one of them, you're probably kin to at least 50% of the folks in Headland, if not
One
more.
thing I wanted to tell you, when we were talking about Charles Woods, how we thought he was adopted all these years, even though, so Uncle Ples, his name was Pleasant. So Uncle Ples
Pleasant Angus.
supposedly adopted him, but then he gives him to this sister of his who's not married. Was she married when he adopted? No, she was a single woman at that time. That's right. So basically, Annie's raising this baby that her brother has adopted, and then she marries later. Well, Charles grows up and has all these children. I post a picture of my babies on Facebook years ago, a picture of y'all when y'all were younger. One of the Woods kids, I think it was David, wrote, "Those look like Woods babies. Beautiful children, those look like Woods
I have
babies.
thought that before myself. When I looked at his kids,
They look
they
like
looked
our
like us.
kids."
Yep.
So people that should not look anything like us if he's this adopted child from Birmingham.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, anyway. But so what I said was, well, like Aunt Edith says, if there's a drop of Woods in you, it'll come out. And then she just laughed. She said, David's over here laughing, dying laughing in the background. But then after I wrote that, I was like, except we're not really related by blood. But yeah,
but we were probably.
probably.
Yeah.
But just back then, it wasn't okay to say. But isn't that sweet of if that story is true,
Yeah.
and Annie has a baby and has to pretend like she didn't have a baby because she's single, and this is what year? 1930 something,
No.
20 something.
He was born
older
in
than-
1918, so it was,
In the
Right
it
teens.
was
after
right around 1920.
So it's 1920, and you've had a baby, and you're not married, and so you can't bring him home. So you leave him in Birmingham with somebody, I guess, and then your brother comes along and adopts this
I
baby and
think they
brings it
might
home
have
to
put
you.
him in the orphanage for all I know. I don't know how
Yeah,
that
just
worked.
temporarily, and then Ples went down and got him and adopts this baby. So
Anyway, the Woods, Granddaddy Woods ran a service station in Headland. And the Baxters were farmers,
So Granddaddy Woods, that is Mama Kate's daddy.
W.E. Woods,
I don't know
William
him.
E. Woods.
The Baxters were farmers.
As far as I recall.
So Solomon's, that information will be in those documents you're giving me. Vans, dry goods store, Woods, service station, Baxter's, farmers, and the Brannons and the Smiths.
And some of them may not be in there. But have you ever been to Center Church in Headland?
Nobody wants to go. That's where Rozier's tombstone is, and it's spelled Brannon with an A-N.
Oh, is it?
Uh-huh. And where he says that he donated that land.
Rozier didn't donate it.
Was it Rozier's dad?
Rozier's son.
Rozier's son. Oh,
Jehoiakim.
that's right.
Jehoiakim, which is a biblical name. Apparently Jehoiakim was a mean
King
king.
in northern Israel.
Oh, really? And why anybody would name a kid after a mean king?
But Daddy,
I
they
don't
might
know.
have just been looking through the
They
Bible.
probably
You know, they
did.
didn't
They
actually
probably
read
did.
it
They
yet.
like
But, oh, here's Jehoiakim. That's an unusual.
See, he was known as Jehoiakim, Akim, spelled A-K-E-M, A-K-I-M, A-C-O-M. Anyway, but one of them, you might know either Jehoiakim or Epaminondas Woods. That's him, Epaminondas Woods.
They called him Pam, but it was a man.
True, but one of them died
So those are two names for babies.
a month after, what was that battle?
It was at a, wasn't it at a church? Something church?
No,
It was in
Wasn't it
Alabama.
over near, I thought it was near Atlanta.
it was.
Didn't we go looking for the grave over in
Chickamauga,
Atlanta?
Yeah.
Chickamauga.
Yes,
And
it was
Chickamauga.
Tennessee.
Chickamauga's
was
kind of in the
at
corner of
Chattanooga.
Tennessee and Georgia. Yeah, you're right.
But they took him and buried him in a cemetery near Atlanta.
Maybe.
But we never could find his grave. I don't
We-
think they marked the Confederates. I think they just mass buried
Okay,
him.
but see, I never could remember which was which, but Jehoiakim donated supposedly 10 acres of land
That's what the sign says.
where the cemetery is, the church is still there, and Wiley Justice, who would be like my third or fourth cousin, has bought the old home place. And we were supposed to go over there to a party. They always have it the night after Thanksgiving, Friday night after Thanksgiving, but they didn't have it this year. And you remember Terry Collins, the representative from Decatur?
I don't think so.
Anyway, she was married to my cousin, Tom Collins, and Tom died last year, fairly young man. And so they were going to spread his ashes down there at the Center Church community this year. So we didn't go to the party. All right, I'm going to hush again, Logan. I can't get started on one thing without getting off on a
So what
tangent.
what did Rozier and Jehoiakim and their sons do for a living? Do we
I
know?
have no clue.
Okay.
Whatever. I do know, or Daddy told me, that the reason they wound up with that land where they did, kind of in the corner of Henry County and Dale County,
Mhm.
is nobody else wanted it. The land,
Yeah,
the land the Brannons got were
the Alabama opened up as a state in 1819,
correct.
and then that's right when the Brannons and the Browns, everybody just kind of flooded in, and the national government was giving away property.
That's what I thought I was going to say. I think they had land grants or
Yeah.
whatever you would call it.
Yeah,
But apparently the Brannons got that nobody else wanted. But now it's pretty nice property.
yeah. It's funny. The Brannons and the Browns just crossed the state line and was like, all right, we're far enough in to get our free land.
Where did the Browns come from? Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee.
You
North
see, the
Carolina before that.
Brannons came from Georgia.
So yeah, they just barely came into Alabama from both sides. And
Yeah.
There's a lot of history in Henry County. Well, there's a lot of history everywhere.
Yeah. Julie and I went on vacation one time down to Gulf Shores. And we left there and we drove to Headland. And Julie went in and was talking to your mama, and your daddy was in his office. So I went in there and sat down and talked with him. And he told me about the Brannons coming over from Georgia. He said they walked over.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But they didn't walk across the river, did they?
No, I guess not.
They found a
I don't
bridge
know, they were
somewhere.
pretty special. They were,
But he
they were
said
pretty
they
good.
walked over and they had some land first north of Headland up there somewhere.
Oh, really?
So,
Well, see, the Center Church community is kind of north of Headland and west.
okay,
Newville would be the next little town above Headland.
okay.
And then to get over to Center Church is probably only about 8 or 10 miles over there.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that's the same land or
I don't
not.
either. But I told him he needed to write all that down. And he said, yeah, I need to.
Nobody does it. You know, we think,
Yeah.
I wish we had, or wish, I mean, I don't know what good it does anybody, but just,
It's just
it's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yep. Mom, me and Mama's gonna write all this down.
Mhm.
But
We'll have to work on it some more later, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you know who the richest man in Alabama is supposed to be?
I do not.
Do you know Larry? Do you know Julie?
It used to be that guy that was Bob James
Really?
years ago.
I never heard
He
that.
had some sort of a sports equipment company or something, and then he was governor, but that was in the 80s.
Okay, I thought you might have said Harbert, who's a construction man, or what do you call him, Hallmark? You know, that big house between here and Birmingham.
Oh yeah, that
The
big white one.
hallmarks on
Yeah.
that. But supposedly, the richest man in Alabama is named Jimmy Rain, R-A-N-E. He's the Yellowwood man.
Oh.
You've seen him on TV.
Uh-huh. I have.
I'm fixing to show y'all his picture.
Yellow wood.
Yellowwood.
Yeah, he advertises the yellow wood.
That that osmosis
That treated
treated
wood?
wood.
Oh, okay.
They call it yellow wood. So he's been on TV, yellow fella dressed up in the yellow suit riding a horse. And I mean, he's famous and he's rich. But he currently is the president of the Henry County Historical Group. And your Uncle Sid is on the board of trustees with
That's
him.
great.
And they named the subdivision where he lives Rain Tree, Rane, after Jimmy
Aw.
Rain.
That's neat.
And the story there is interesting in that Jimmy Rain's daddy, Tony, came to Fort Rucker, was in the service, married a girl from Abbeville who was good friends with Emily Ezel. And they moved to Headland and raised their family there. Well, Tony did very well, but Jimmy has done even better. I mean, he's just into everything. Y'all need to go through Abbeville. If you ever get back to Headland, go through Abbeville, excuse me, which is 18 miles away, and see those buildings that he has restored. I said, I wish Headland had a Jimmy Rain that could restore some of these. I mean, it's just gorgeous the way he's done it. He's got a restaurant called Huggin' Molly's, and there's a store that goes with that. And he's got an event center and excuse me, all kind of stuff that he's just refurbished or whatever you
So
call it.
Apple's the
rehabilitate.
county seat of Henry County, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You see, back in the days when people came from Georgia, they would come to Abbeville first. But the Abbeville people don't like it, and Jim Van does like it. That Headland is eating their lunch because Headland is closer to Dothan, and the population is growing a lot faster, and Abbeville's kind of shrinking a little bit. But Dale Ezel, our cousin, and Fred Arnold, our cousin, live in that same subdivision with Jimmy Rain. So my claim to fame is I got cousins that live in Jimmy Rain's subdivision. Have y'all been keeping up with the Auburn coach that just got
Yeah.
hired, Harson?
Yeah,
I
from
hope we
Boise
made a
State.
good,
From Boise State.
I hope we made a good hire, and I think we did. But it's a big mess down there.
There's a lot of people that wouldn't interview for it. Right? Steve Sarkisian refused to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he
Wow.
turned it down, and then I heard of a couple of more people.
With Sarkeesian, the Alabama,
Offensive coordinator.
and then what about the guy from Oregon? Apparently he wasn't interested.
Yeah, Mario Cristobal.
Right.
He's
Well-
already got a head coaching job. So
Well, I didn't even know this guy. Never heard of him.
no, I didn't either.
But
The
from
guy
what
from
I,
Boise State.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But he's got a good team. I mean, their teams. Has
Oh,
he
yeah,
been there a while?
he's been very successful there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Several years. But anyway, after they got him and after I found out more about him, I believe he's the best hire they could have come up with.
Yeah, he's
And
pretty
I
good.
hope he cleans house down at Auburn. They say that Kevin Steele, who was mentioned as a possible head coach, and Rodney Garner, who's supposed to be a good recruiter and a line coach, they claim that they were kind of backbiting and, kind of teamed up on Malzahn and caused a lot of dissension. And I heard Sam the Third, that's what I was going to tell you. I talked to him this morning. But he said that somebody told him that Steele had that reputation when he was elsewhere. I think he was at Alabama and maybe, some other colleges.
So he needs to just move on.
That's right, exactly. That's what I told Sam. I said, if that's true, he needs to be gone from there. And I hope that, what's our new man's name?
I can't even remember.
Hoskins or
Yeah, something
something
like
like that. I hope that they'll give him free reign to get his own staff.
Surely
see,
they will.
It's awkward that Steele is the interim coach, and he'll be coaching next Friday against Northwestern in the Citrus Bowl. And see, he's still got all that staff there, but the new coach is on campus, and it sounds like he's trying to stay back and let the old crew coach
Wrap it
this
up.
one game. But he's also meeting with some of the players and talking to them and perking them up and telling them to play hard. And so I don't know how it's going to turn out. But Northwestern's a good team, and I feel like Auburn's going to do one of two things. They're either going to fall flat on their face because of all this dissension, or maybe they can overcome the adversity and get out there and play ball and put a whooping on on Northwestern.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Since you mentioned Sam the Third, when Nana died, I told the folks at work that I was going down for the funeral, or anyway, I don't remember exactly if I had to take off work or what. But when I came back, my boss said, I saw that the funeral was in Headland. And I said, yeah. And she said, how well do you know that area?
Real
And
well.
I said, I think I said like the back of my hand or something. I was like, yeah. And she said, oh. And she said, do you know Sam Van? And I said, why? Have I told you this story?
I don't think so.
I said, why? And I was, to tell you the
So
truth,
now, the third or
no,
the
the
Big Sam?
Big Sam.
Okay.
So what I was afraid was she had some dealing with him at Headland National Bank, and he had been mean to her. I mean, that's the first thing that popped in my head was, what has he done? I mean, that he might have just been kind of hateful or something, some kind of bad business deal.
Now, where was this you met her?
She's my boss at work. So she said, do you know Sam Van? And I said, why?
So, yeah.
But I'm thinking, what did he do? What did he do? And she said, well, he's my great uncle. And I said, he's my great uncle. And she just looked at me funny. And I said, he's my grandmother's brother. And she said, well, his wife is my grandmother's sister.
Fran Mallet.
Yes. So her mother is Bessie Mallet.
I don't know her.
And she married a Sirmon, Sirmon, and they had 6 children, 5 daughters and a son.
How about that?
So yeah, her name is Lynn. So I said, wait a minute. So little Sam is my daddy's first cousin. That's your second. I mean, isn't that crazy?
It is, but that doesn't make y'all kinfolk.
No, we're not related at all. But Sam the third is my second cousin and her second cousin, and
How about
Uncle
that?
Sam is my dear great Uncle Sam, and it's her. I don't think she likes him as much as we do, but
He
because
could be kind of cantankerous.
he can be, and I just don't think they had as much to do with him, especially since Fran died first, and then all the years we kept Uncle Sam, they didn't really have much to do with him.
Right.
So then she said, well, I know that Sam named one of his kids Brannon. I said, yeah, after us. That's we're still,
Sam the third married his child, Brannon Van.
Right. I said, that's after us. And I said, we have a Van Brannon after them, and they have a Brannon Van after us. I said, yeah, we're all.
We got Sam Van Brannon, Van
I know.
Van Brannon, Brannon Van.
So many of them. But isn't that neat? So my boss is Uncle Sam's great niece, just like I'm Uncle Sam's great niece, but not the
By
same.
marriage.
But not the same.
Yeah.
But even Aunt Fran, I loved Aunt Fran. She wore sparkly gold and silver shoes before that was in style.
She was a trendsetter.
She was the only one I
She
knew that wore
was.
sparkly shoes.
Well, she was a character, and she and Rachel hit it off pretty well. Rachel would go with her
Love her.
shopping to Dover, and they go. I don't know if Rachel had one or not, but Fran, she might have. But Fran would usually go somewhere and they'd have lunch, and she could
Maybe
her
she was
back
the
a while.
designated driver. Rachel was probably the safety girl.
Probably. But I've just heard Will can tell you some stories because he went with a time or two.
I just loved her. And she would always wear her glasses around her neck. And what she wore was all sparkly and, fake jewels and costume jewelry. I mean, she was all about it. And as a little girl, I was like, that is beautiful. I didn't know it was costume, I was like, oh, wow.
Would it be fair to say that if you put her in Gone with the Winds, she would fit right in?
Yes, southern. Just sweet, sweet, sweet lady. Do you know how old she was when she had Sam? They were older. In their
I'm going to
40s.
say close to 40.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even older than, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so sweet, so smart.
See, with all this going on at Auburn, that's what I'm going to tell y'all. Sid called me. Well, he sent me some pictures showing me Sam the Third's remodeling, and I meant to show Betsy yesterday, and I left my phone in the truck, and Amanda called while I was in there, and anyway, I forgot to show Betsy. But I called Sid to thank him for sending me the pictures, and I said, you tell Sam the Third that I heard that he and some other influential boosters were causing problems down at Auburn with them trying to hire a new coach. And I was trying to imply that Jimmy Rain and Jack Fied and Dick Van and, some that I know and most of them I don't know, were trying to cause problems. And Sam said, no, it wasn't me.
I don't have anything to do with that. He's should know you were just teasing, but just in case Sam wanted to get that on the record, it wasn't him.
Is he remodeling his parents' house?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm so glad.
If I can find it on here. Here we go.
So glad.
I've said before, I'd love to have it. It's supposed to be the second oldest brick house in Headland. And then that one, Jim has ended up buying 3 houses, I guess, on Main Street. The one he was living in, the one that Mammy lives in, and then the one next door.
Mm-hmm.
And
His
Look at
storage
that
house.
desk. Was that desk always there?
I don't know.
That looks like an old timey desk,
I don't
doesn't
know.
it?
Uncle Sam had a bunch of antique stuff. He got it from the Van estate, and they said they brought it down the Chattahoochee River on barges and unloaded in Abbeville.
Okay. I'll tell you another place I want to go to down there is Eufaula.
Great place.
I have heard that that's the most beautiful town that folks have ever seen.
Nice.
Well, they had a big controversy here a few years ago about some trees that line the main drag going through town. And I don't know what the argument was about, but some of the older folks didn't want the trees cut, others wanted them cut. But I mean, it was a big cotton town back in the day, and you just go by mansion after mansion after mansion. I don't believe I'd be exaggerating to say 25 or 30 mansions on that one street.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have deteriorated, some of them have been converted to businesses, and
Yeah.
you and I couldn't afford one because we couldn't pay the utility bill. Heat and
Right.
cool it.
Yeah.
But sure, it would be nice to have one of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, Logan, your
Mama,
turn.
do you have any questions about his parents or grandparents?
What I wanted to know, okay, what about, I know Pap, I remember Pap, but what about his siblings? He was the 7th of 11 children.
Really?
Did you know any of Pap's siblings?
I did.
Who did you know?
Aunt Effie lived in Albany, Georgia.
Okay, let me write, I'm finding her right here.
Aunt
Aunt
Mamie
Effie.
lived over in the house that I just told you about,
Oh,
that Wiley Justice bought.
Okay, Effie, let me find Effie here. Effie, she was right below him. She was
had-
born the same year. He was born in 1887. She was born in 1887.
How'd they manage that?
Was Pap born in January?
Like October.
No, that can't be right. I must have typed that up. Or were they twins?
No, they weren't twins, but there are a lot of mistakes. You'll
Okay.
find a lot of
Okay,
mistakes.
yeah, his
The
birthday
data
was
entry.
Halloween. Pap was born on Halloween.
Sure
That's
was.
right. So that cannot be right. Okay, what did you say about Effie? She lived where?
Albany, Georgia.
Albany, Georgia.
Married Esau Riley.
Coleman Esau Riley, about 1910 is what I've got.
Well, I'm glad I
Albany,
agree
Georgia.
with that.
Albany, Georgia. Okay, so you knew her.
Right.
Okay. And then Mamie Louise, I have got a recipe that said Aunt Mamie's pecans or something. And I was going to ask you, who the heck's Aunt Mamie? We don't know her,
It
but we
could
do
be
know
Aunt
her.
Mamie Oates,
Oh,
grandmother's sister, or it could be Aunt Mamie
With two Aunt Mamies.
Snell.
This
See,
is
grandma.
William Pryor Snell.
Yeah.
You knew her. What about her? Did she have some good pecans?
Not that I remember. She had some good kids, and Dan would saddle up his horse and let me ride it.
Dan Snell would let you ride his horse. That's sweet. And I bet he
Now,
didn't let him
we've
fall
got
off.
we've got some information on the Brannon side. Mostly what you got in that is going to be van stuff.
Okay. Are those are pictures or what are those?
What now?
What do you got over there?
Just information.
No, that packet is right there. Didn't I give it to you?
No, yeah.
No, I think it's over on the table, you said.
Okay.
Eleanor Maud had Judy and Rita. I know that. Isn't that funny? She had both girls and Granddaddy had all boys.
And see, Rita is the only one left. And she cares, seemingly cares a lot about us because we're her only cousins on the Brannon side. And then her cousin on the Shaw side is Roberta, who has MS. Not as bad as your mama has, but bad enough.
So that's all you knew of Pap's siblings were Effie and Mamie?
No,
You knew Charles and Claudie?
no, wait a minute. Let me tell you before you tell me their name, I want to
Okay.
tell you their name.
Okay.
One of them lived in Dothan and one of them lived in Panama City. And their names were, Here's what I want you to take, Logan.
Oh, okay.
See, that whole packet is van stuff. You see, this is that's Jimmy Rain, the
Okay.
Yellowwood man,
Okay.
who is the president of this thing, but your great uncle, Sid Brannon, is one of the directors.
Nice.
So how long are y'all gonna be in town?
We're flying tomorrow afternoon.
Really?
Yeah, we're going to Austin.
Okay, are your mom and dad going too?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you're
I can
welcome.
just take pictures of that.
I was gonna say you're welcome to take it with you if you want to. I would like to get it back at some point.
Yeah, I just want to digitize everything. Take pictures of it, and then yeah.
Coley Brown was one.
Coley,
Daddy,
and he
Daddy.
oh, okay.
I saw Daddy.
Daddy's the oldest one.
I knew Daddy and Coley.
Okay.
One of them lived in Dothan, one of them lived in Panama City. Big Daddy said, back when Pap had his, I didn't tell y'all about the mattress factory. You know about it?
I've seen.
Logan asked what he did. Hey, Logan, Pap Brannon ran a mattress factory at one time. He
Okay.
had a little miniature gin that would gin his own cotton so he could come up with the batting, for the mattress. And it was straight down that pasture, Julie, where you went through the gate and over the stile. Down at the other end of that pasture is where the mattress factory was. It was up on stilts. We had to climb up in there. But he would go around, and if somebody wanted a mattress refurbished, he could load it up and bring it back to the
I've
shop.
never heard such a thing, get your mattress refurbished. We just get a new one now, but they would get the new
Yeah,
stuff.
we didn't have bedrooms and everything. And they probably couldn't afford to do it.
Right, that's what I said.
He
It's
had-
cheaper to get
We
new
had
stuff.
that blue and white material, they call it ticking, yeah. And, but he could make all that in his shop, so he'd go around and, I guess, get all the business he could handle, take it back to his mattress factory and refurbish them. And then
Oh,
they'll
you
do
got
it.
your own mattress back. You might have had somebody else's mattress for all you knew.
That was.
And he was also a postmaster, a postman.
He had a Star mail route, which he left his house in Heaven, Star Route mail carrier. He'd leave Heaven in the morning, and he had his own truck, and it would be like I won't guess a 1 ton or maybe bigger. And he would always have a new bed put on it when he got the new one. And he did some illegal stuff, but he'd go to Dothan and pick up the mail in Dothan. He'd come back to Heaven, Newville, Cap Station, and Abbeville. I rode with him many times. And when Dorothy and I got married, and I told Mama, I got a job at the VA hospital in Salt Lake City making $2,980 a year. And she said, well, you can do that good driving Pap's mail. She wanted me to come back. But anyway, he would run a mail route and see he would haul little baby chickens. The Alabama hatchery would box them up, and I don't know, 50 or 100 in a box, and you'd hear them cheeping, and people would order them by mail, and he'd deliver them to the post boxes. And he also had a lock bag that was supposed to be the first class mail up in there. Well, why they put a lock on it, I don't know, because if somebody wanted to get it, all they had to do was take the whole bag and go with it. But he was running a bus service for a taxi service. If somebody wanted to ride to Dothan, he always had this little coin purse. You remember those that kind of snapped at the top of the leather purse? He always had money. We didn't ever go without nickels and dimes and quarters if we needed them. But he would give people rides, and he charged different amounts depending on how far they wanted to go. If they want to run the whole route, it might be 15 cents or a quarter.
Even though he was riding anyway, it didn't cost me anything for them to ride with him. He made
And it was
$0.50.
against the U.S. mail law to have passengers back there in the same compartment with the mail. And we knew if we were in Dothan, if we hitchhiked to Dothan to go get us some donuts or whatever after football practice, we knew that if we didn't have a ride back, if we'd be over there at the post office about 4 o'clock, we had to ride home.
Nice. Mom, you got any more questions about the grandparents or parents?
We'll have to do it again because there's no way under the sun. I mean,
Get everything.
Well, one thing I did tell you about being a breech birth and being born in that middle bedroom.
Mhm.
But I didn't tell you that that was one of the most embarrassing moments in my life.
What?
To be born in there, you say, what are your first recollections of Italy? Being born buck naked with everybody looking in that
Bottom
middle bedroom. And you know that's a lie.
But if he could remember, that would be embarrassing.
No, and then who did you know that had gone to Yellowstone, worked at Yellowstone before you went there?
My Uncle Jim Van,
Okay.
who is 95 years old and still alive and kicking barely.
Okay.
And he's a dentist, retired dentist, never did get married, has accumulated a ton of money. And I know that it's bragging on my part, but we have been told, whether it happens or not. And see, Sid has really been Jim's right-hand man, my younger brother Sid, all these years. And we've heard that Jim was giving Sid this and giving him that and giving him that. And he should. I mean, Sid has
He's
earned
done
it.
a lot, yeah.
But he also supposedly left 120 acres. You know where the Omussie Creek is? Have you been down there to that cabin?
Years ago, we went for Thanksgiving one year.
Okay. Well, anyway, he supposedly has left that to Mama, which will be mine and Sam and Sid's, as well as that house that he's living in now that he's remodeled.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
then he's left Sid, we heard, property. See, Sid wound up with the 102 Forest Street house that we grew up in.
Okay.
He won't do anything with it. Property is-
Preserving it.
Well, he's not preserving
Is it empty? It's just running down because
He
nobody's in it?
uses it kind of as a storage building, and you know, I don't know. I hope he fixed the roof. It was leaking one time.
It could be really pretty. It's not a big fancy mansion kind of house, but it's
It's right next door to Mark
beautiful.
Willis. You know
It
that.
is. It's
Yes.
and it's beautiful.
But if you know, it would take several thousand,
To fix it
25
up.
or more, to put it in ship shape. And he doesn't want to sell it. He said, "That's the house I grew up in." I said,
And that he
"So
raised
what?"
his family in.
True.
He
But
lived there
He
most
just
of
doesn't
his
have the 25 to put. He didn't want to allocate the 25,000 to.
He
Fix it.
probably could come up with it, but he's got so many irons in the fire. See, when Mama died, she left Sam. Well, we kind of divided it up. I needed money because I was going through a divorce and needed a chunk.
Gotcha.
But anyway, Sam ended up with Circle B Ranch, which is about 120 acres of valuable property.
Yeah. We drove out there and took a picture with your daddy.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, Sid ended up with other things. The Forest Street house. One reason he got that is his daughter, Kate, I think got on drugs. I don't know what she did, but she got in financial trouble, didn't take good care of things, and she was in a car wreck and thought she was going to get enough money out of that to pay out of debt. And she talked Mama into letting her co-sign, or Mama co-signed with her, or obligated some of her CDs to help Kate,
Get through a rough patch.
yeah. Anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you all that, except I don't know what all Sid got in the deal, but we all got like $250,000 somewhere along in there.
That's great. So for some reason, I thought Sid wanted the farm and Sam wanted the houses, but it ended up that Sam got the farm.
And see, we all three have the house that they live in,
See, I didn't know that.
your mom and dad's. See, I'd sell my third of it in a heartbeat because I don't want it. I don't need it.
But they don't want
Well,
to buy you out.
so what's happening with Nana and D Daddy's?
Sam Brannon, Sid Brannon, and Sam the third have been living there.
Okay.
But now Sam third is remodeling his house, so he'll be leaving.
So Sam is not with Debbie?
With who?
Sam the third, wasn't his wife's name Debbie?
No, they're irretrievably separated. Excuse me, I
did
gotta
not
run
know
to the
that.
bathroom.
Okay, I did not know that.
We see that whole bunch, Sam Brannon and Linda are apart, Sid separated. Now Sam the third, I don't know.
I did not know that. Debbie's my Facebook friend.
She's not posting it on her.
No. And I mean, she usually just posts pictures of her grandchildren, but I didn't know she and Sam weren't together.
This pause.
Assigned to Korea after he finished dental school.
Okay.
But he had been a park ranger out there.
Before dental school, before.
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. Could have been in the summer between, I don't know how
Okay.
that worked. But he went, I think, 2 different years. And one funny story about that is he had a ranger's hat that he wanted to sell. And the same year that I worked out there, Donald Solomon, his sister Jane Solomon, Nikki Weeks, Sonny Martin, and I. 5 people from little old Headland, Alabama, were working in Yellowstone that summer.
That's funny.
Jim sent his ranger hat by Sonny Martin for me to sell. And I needed to go up to the Mammoth, to the ranger headquarters up at the north part of the park at Mammoth location. Well, in the meantime, Sonny Martin and his smart self put that hat on one night and went over into this dorm where these kids were living, or lodge, somewhere over at Old Faithful's where he was. And I was at Fisher Bridge. Well, he goes in there and wakes this kid up in the middle of the night and said, "You've got a phone call over at Lake Lodge or Lake Hotel, long way away." Not Lake, but Old Faithful.
Yeah.
So anyway, the boy gets up and goes over there, half asleep. And they said, "Man, you don't have a phone call over here. We don't know what you're talking about." He said, "Well, a ranger came in my..." Okay, now I'm supposed to carry the hat.
You try to sell it.
And
They'll
so I'm
think it
scared
was
to
you.
That's exactly right. So I put it under my bed
Look
and
at
let it
that
cool
down.
off. But then, see, we had no way to travel. I had to hitchhike up to Mammoth and left it with him. And I think Jim told me they sent him a $25 check when it sold. But he's the one that got us interested in Yellowstone, and 5 of us from Headland
So did y'all all fly out there? How did y'all get out there that summer?
trained.
So y'all kind of traveled together?
No, we all went separately.
Okay.
But just when you got there, there were some of your
The
buddies.
night that I graduated from high school, the night, I got on a train in Dothan, Alabama,
Okay.
going to Chicago.
Okay.
Changed trains in Chicago and went out west on
I-80 now.
Northern Pacific or Union Pacific
okay.
or whatever, and wound up in Livingston, Montana. Then I took a bus down to Gardner, Montana, where the Yellowstone Park people picked us up. You see, there was a whole group of them, but not the ones from Headland. A whole group of us in that bus in the snowbank. Now this is May, late May. Snowbanks were so tall when that bus would turn corners, sometimes it would, scrape the snowbank. And see, there were different kids on there that were assigned different places. I was Fishing Bridge. Some of them were Lake, Canyon, Mammoth, West Thumb. That's all I can remember.
Had you been assigned that, like, when you were in high school? Did you know you were going to be at Fishing Bridge, or was that when you got to
No, I
Yellowstone?
knew before I left that's where I was going.
Okay.
But I had no idea where Fishing Bridge was.
Okay.
And see, my first job was a cabin boy. We'd roll these little carts around, and the girls would change the linen, and the boys would take care of the firewood and take the dirty linen back to the laundry room. Okay, after that, I got a chance to work in the laundry. And that was a pretty sweet job compared to what I had been doing. But the best job was I got to work on a garbage truck. You see, we'd go around the campground and pick up the garbage, and we had a designated place, dump, to put it. And we were supposed to make a couple of stops between where we were and the dump, checking for fire. Because, see, they'd use those presto logs, and sometimes when people took out the ashes, they'd be smoldering enough that it might catch up as you're driving down the road with the wind blowing. Well, we got lackadaisical and quit making the fire stops like we were supposed to. So we looked back there one day, and Lord have mercy, that whole truck bed was on fire. But we did have a fire extinguisher, and we got it out before it did much damage. And of course, we had to lie when we got back.
So no fire.
Told them that we made the stop, which we didn't. But
How often were you seeing your cousins during that summer?
the Solomons,
Yeah.
not very often,
Like once a month, or
if that much.
okay?
Donald was assigned over to Old Faithful, where Sonny Martin and Donald were both over there, but they had 2 or 3 different locations, like Old Faithful Inn, Old Faithful Hotel, Old Faithful Lodge. One of those buildings is still there, and I mean, it is gorgeous. I saw it a couple of years ago. But anyway, Jane Solomon was at Lake, and I was the only one at Fishing Bridge. I think Nikki Weeks was at Lake also. So 2 at Lake, 1 at Fishing Bridge, and 2 at Old Faithful.
Nice.
But I didn't see them often. Donald was in with these California boys that had a fancy car. And I remember They had this, I don't know what you'd call it, Larry, it'd be kind of a fancy muffler or something on the side of it.
Side pipes, yeah.
Huh?
They call them side pipes.
Okay, that's what it was. I don't remember what kind of car it was. But when they drove up, they came to see me over at Fishing Bridge, and like a fool,
Oh,
I put my foot up on there. I didn't hurt it, but I said, "What is this?" And Donald told me later that those California boys, or Arizona, wherever they were from, said that if I hadn't have been his friend, I would have gotten a whooping for putting my foot on that side pipe.
oh, I thought you were gonna say it burned you, but they just didn't like you messing with their
Well,
pipe.
you know they wouldn't. It was their pride and joy.
Was it chrome?
Yeah. And it was one of those, well, this was 57. I doubt that it could have been like a 55 or 56, or maybe older than that, but it was a nice car.
Yeah.
And they didn't want me putting my foot
They
on the
would've
pipe,
whooped you.
and I don't blame them.
So the internship was May to August, or how long was it?
What do you call an
Or
internship?
I guess the job, the summer
Yeah,
job.
see, when you made application for it, they told us that the earlier you could come and the later you could stay, the better your chances of getting hired were.
Okay.
Well, so I signed up from May to September.
Okay.
Well, I was going to school in Auburn that fall. And after I found out when school started, I really couldn't work out my total time that I had agreed to. And so I just went and talked to the guy that was running and said, "Hey, I need to go. Need to get out of here so I can get home and go to school." And they didn't give me any trouble about it.
Okay.
I barely made enough money
To
that
make it
whole summer to pay for my train ticket out there and train ticket back. If I had any money to go to Auburn on, I don't remember how much it was. And there was a guy, I've forgotten the fraternity, it doesn't matter, came over to the boarding house where I was living, and they were trying to, recruit me and get me to join their fraternity. And I said, "Man, I don't have enough money to be in Auburn, much less to be in a fraternity, because I heard it costs more if you lived in a fraternity house." But anyway, that was an interesting experience.
And when did you meet Dot? Was that pretty early on?
In Yellowstone,
Yeah, was that like in May, like pretty early on?
I'm pretty sure she was working over in the dining room, in the kitchen. Yeah,
So how many people were working in Fishing Bridge? Was it like 5 of you, like 30 of you, like you have
altogether like 50,
50?
because there are a lot of different, well, not all of them worked for Yellowstone Park Company, but they had a grocery store.
Okay.
I've forgotten what that was called. They had a photography shop, Haynes. They had a boat dock down there where the kids that worked there, there's only 4 or 5 of them maybe, but they would clean fish. But now at the place where I worked, it had to be at least 30 or more probably, because they had people cleaning cabins and people working in the office, and all those that worked in the, where Dot did, in the cafeteria.
Mhm.
You see, she had to work split shifts because they fed us 3 times a day, I
Okay.
think. And they worked it out, so she might have to be there for breakfast, take a little break and come back for lunch, or maybe even had to come back for all 3 meals. I wouldn't like that, because I just put in my regular day
And be off.
and went to the house.
Like 9 to 5?
6 or 7 to dark.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Did you have to paint on bears, or you just had to tell them? I remember that they would paint X's on bears if they got in the garbage, and then if you ever saw a bear with an X on it, that's when they would shoot them if they got in the garbage again.
I didn't really have anything to do with marking them,
Okay.
but we saw plenty of them. They'd be in the garbage cans, when we came around, and we'd honk the horn.
Nice. So he's the garbage man, and bears are getting in the garbage.
We'd throw presto logs and sticks and, try to run them off.
But that was the policy. If they got in the garbage, they spray painted them or marked them with an X.
That would be the Rangers doing that.
Okay. And then if they got in the garbage can with an X on their back, they would shoot them, because that's
Or
the
they
second
might
time.
trap
Or
them and
haul them
haul 'em
off.
off.
Yeah. Maybe they were shooting them with a tranquilizer gun. I don't
We
know.
occasionally saw grizzlies. Mostly it was just brown bears or black bear. They could be brown or black in color, but I've forgotten whether they call them American brown bear or black bear. It was a fun experience.
And do you know how Dot got interested in the Yellowstone?
Not at
job?
all. Don't have a clue.
I talked to Ray. What do you call him?
Todd.
He says hi.
Logan's
good.
been calling everybody trying to get family history, so he called John, Jack, and Todd recently.
Great.
Yeah.
You know Sally, don't you?
Yeah. So you were there when Sally did that presentation on who was it?
Yeah.
Wasn't the Waltons, but the Arnolds, or who was it?
Was it on the Waltons? I can't remember.
At James Harris's house. She did that PowerPoint presentation on.
I don't think I was there. I don't
I think
remember.
it was when Morgan was a baby. I think you might. Yeah, maybe.
I think it
you
was
weren't
when
there.
Ruth Ann got married, but I don't know if he was still there or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember it. But
Yeah, I've tried to get. I called Sally a couple of times, but I think she was 7 or 8 years younger than Dot. So some of the
she was. Kristen won't ever come back after hearing all this crap.
Yeah, that's not true. I love this
But
stuff.
when,
And there's some similarities from some of the stories you said to like my grandparents.
when,
Oh, that's neat.
when Dot and I got married, I went to the University of Utah to undergraduate, and I tried to get into med school at Utah, but I didn't that first year. But I did get accepted to Alabama, and I said I'd been working at the VA hospital all those years. While I was going to school, we lived in Stadium Village and managed to have a couple of kids in the meantime. But when I got accepted to Alabama, there wasn't any doubt about it. I was going to med school right then, not waiting. So I forgot now what I was going to tell you about that. It was something to do with med school. Anyway, we moved to Birmingham, and we, Mom and Daddy had gone up there and had found us a nice place in Valley View Apartments. Nice. We couldn't afford it because we only had like $220 a month coming in. The Waltons gave us $120, Mom and Daddy $100.
Oh my goodness.
And we couldn't handle $90. So I saw this sign in the medical school office. It said apartment for rent, $55. And it turned out it was Miss Aiken, Miss Eugenia Aiken. So I called her up,
Just a miracle, a
went over
blessing.
there, and we looked at it. It was old servants' quarters out behind their house. And it was nothing to compare with Valley View Apartments, but the rent was more in our budget. So we lived there all those years.
And the apartment didn't come with Miss Aiken.
Wasn't that? That's true.
The apartment didn't come with
She
Miss
was a doll. She
Eugenia
was
Aiken.
like another grandmother for y'all.
She's the one that when my mama was sick with Jamie, she pulled up and Betsy and Kurt and I are in the car. Daddy's at work. He's working all the time at the hospital. He's in med school and working at the hospital.
I actually was in the dean's office
Oh.
at that time at a meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But anyway, Miss Eugenia pulls up there and parks somewhere that it says no parking, do not park, but she's got to get sick Dot in the hospital. And the security guard comes up to the car and says, "No, ma'am, you cannot park here." Well, her husband was a doctor at that hospital, and she's a strong Southern woman, and she says, "Not only am I going to park here and take this sick woman to the hospital, you're going to stay here and watch these 3 kids." And then she marched in there with the hospital with Dot, and he stood there and watched those 3
I
kids.
love that.
Precious.
How did you choose urology?
The best way to answer that is we used to say that there were thinking doctors and doing doctors. The thinking doctors were primarily, cardiologists, hands-off type stuff, non-surgeons anyway. Okay, I knew right off that I was interested in some kind of surgery, but general surgery didn't turn me on that much. ENT, eye, orthopedics didn't turn me on. But I think the main reason I chose it was the residents that were in the department as we rotated through that service took me under their wing, and we'd go in there and look at x-rays. They'd say, "Look here, this patient's got a stone." And you'd see the dye would be delayed coming out of one kidney. And a lot of times you could see the stone. The kinds of surgery that the urologists didn't last as long as the general surgeons.
Okay.
If you go in there and do a 4-hour operation, that ain't for me.
Yeah.
Most anything that could be done in urology would take an hour or less. And learning how to use the scopes and look up in the bladder and squirt dye up into the kidneys, and just the other thing I liked was all ages and both sexes. We took care of everything from a newborn baby to a 90-year-old person, male or female. Of course, we didn't do the gynecology, OBGYN part of it, but anything else that had to do with female, female plumbing fell in our bailiwick.
Okay.
So that's basically it. That's all I can tell you.
Tell them about the first time you watched surgery.
That was not even watching surgery.
Oh,
But
well, tell them that.
Jim Van had a friend named, his last name was Buck. I've forgotten his name, but the dentist, Dr. Buck, had a brother named Gray Buck. And when we were like sophomores, Dr. Gray Buck came to give a lecture to us, and he showed a picture of a hernia repair, which is nothing. Nowadays, I look back and wondered why it bothered me, but it just showed them. Of course, they had them all draped and washed and all that. And as soon as they made the incision, one of the blood was just before they could get the hemostat on it. And I found myself lightheaded and slinking down in the chair. And that makes you wonder how I ever got to be a surgeon.
I guess the story I heard was the first time you saw surgery, so it wasn't in med school, but yeah.
It was in med school,
Oh,
but it was in the 2 years of pre-med. I mean, not pre-med, but
General medicine? Or?
no, whatever they call the first 2 years. Clinical years were when you got in the hospital. But
Okay.
for basic science years.
So this is just watching a film instead of watching a live surgery.
Exactly.
I pictured it, you were standing up watching
You
the
can
surgery.
always embellish it a little bit if you want to.
It sounds a little better if it was the real
Sort of
thing.
like
Yeah.
the ruts, right?
Mhm.
He almost passed out watching it the first time he saw surgery.
Sure did.
How about that? And then he got to where he could do surgery.
Nice.
Now he loved to pull tricks on us. Daddy had carousels and a slide projector. And when we went on vacation, he'd take lots of pictures with his 35mm camera on slide film. And then we'd have these slideshows when we got home. So we'd be watching the film, the slides, and then there'd be a kidney that would just pop up in the middle of it. And we'd go, oh, Daddy! Then he'd laugh and we'd go to the next, he would just randomly put surgery slides in our
I've still
slideshows.
got that carousel, Larry, thing that you gave me, or y'all gave me, and it
We
seems
don't
like
do
I
that.
never have time to
Yeah.
get on it. You just have to say, okay, I'm going to do this. Right now it's going to be my project. But I got the old slides, and what I like to do is go through them and decide which ones need to be kept or which ones I want to keep, and maybe have them digitalized or
Yeah.
do something with them so we don't have them on those.
Cool.
Do you still have a
35mm.
slide projector?
That's what I got from
Oh,
y'all.
okay. Oh, okay. I didn't even remember that. Yeah, because I was saying we have one, but did we
Yeah.
give it to you
No,
to use?
You did. I think I already had the slides,
Okay.
that carousel thing.
Yeah.
We
But
had two.
You did?
Yeah, I gave you one and we kept one.
Okay.
Okay, I don't even remember, but
Well, I appreciate it, even though you can't tell it from my having used it.
well, you'll get around to it one of these days.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe.
good.
Oh, I was going to tell you all about the water. This is called Wheeler Lake.
Wheeler?
Wheeler Lake, named after Joe Wheeler. General
Fighting Joe Wheeler. He was the Civil War general.
Gotcha.
But anyway, they built a series of dams starting back in the 30s, maybe even 20s. Wilson was first, and then Wheeler. I don't know about Gunnersville and different ones up and down the Tennessee River. But when they built Wheeler Dam, the lake that backed up behind it is Wheeler Lake, which is this one. And it goes along with, this one goes from 10 miles down the river all the way to Gunnersville. Whereas between Wilson and Wheeler is probably 10, 12 miles, not as much lake in there. But you can get on the water right here, and if you had time to lock through the docks, you could go all the way to Knoxville.
Oh, wow.
You have to go through Nickajack and I don't know the names of all those dams.
Yeah.
Watts Bar is one of them.
Cool. Yeah.
What I was going to tell you, see the water, if the water were level with the bottom of my boathouse,
Yeah.
that would be what they call full pool.
Okay.
So it's winter pool right now. And I don't know if you know it or not, Larry, but that grass out there that you can see, they call it eel grass. And that eel is what I've been told. It is the most aggravating stuff. When it started growing, it looked like a fern or a cedar tree growing up out the bottom.
Right.
It got so thick, it was out farther, twice as far as it is now. And you can't cast through it. Your lure gets hung up in it. you can't even run your boat through it.
Mm.
So I don't know what they're gonna do. If they don't get rid of it somehow or another, I don't need a boat.
I thought for a while they were spraying, trying to kill that stuff.
Well, you know, years ago, they killed milfoil. They had a pretty
Right.
successful program with that.
Right.
Well, Daddy, one thing Sally told us, we talked to her on a group call a couple of weeks ago, and she said that she remembered going up to Yellowstone and meeting you as a little girl, that John and Ruth went up there to visit Dorothy. What she said was, of course, Dorothy was perfect. She was their first, most beautiful, most precious, smart angel, and her going to Yellowstone about killed them.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah, that her going off, they just couldn't stand it. They missed her so much. And that they went up to see her a few times that summer. And she said, and we met Wayne. And I said, what? See, I thought the first time you met them was when you went out there to get married.
No, I met them up there.
I didn't know that.
Well, later, Dorothy told me later, I think, or maybe Sally did, that they could tell when they came to Yellowstone and saw us, they could tell there was something serious going on
How
between
about
Dot
that?
and me.
Well, I'm going to tell you another thing. I kind of believe that because Logan has been calling people that were in her high school with her. When he was on his mission, they sent him to the MTC, the Missionary Training Center in Utah, for a few weeks to get trained, and then he went on his mission. Well, one of the men there that was the branch president was a high school classmate of Mama's.
Really?
And so Logan found that out there. I guess, how did y'all find that out?
2000, or he just introduced himself, and he said, I was born and raised in Salt Lake. And so I went up to him afterwards and I was like, well, what high school did you go to? And
Olympus.
he said Olympus. And I said, well, what year did you graduate? And he said 57.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, see, they had a much bigger class than we did.
Yeah.
We had like 30-something
Yeah.
in our class. But there was a guy, I wish I could think of his name. He either went to Olympus with your mama, your grandmama, or he might have gone to East High School. They didn't have a North, but they had East, South, and West. Those were the main high schools in Salt Lake. And then Olympus came along and some of the others did. But this guy might have gone to East. That was that southeastern part of Salt Lake, was a little bit more, what would you call it, prosperous.
Mhm.
Like wealthier folks lived over in that area. And like most towns, the other side of the tracks, or a lot of the Hispanics lived over in the west side.
Mm-hmm. West Valley.
What now?
Yeah. West Valley is
Still
kind
like
of
that.
a dangerous part of
Still
Salt
like
Lake.
that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, this guy, I wish I could think of his name. You would probably know him. He became famous as a motivational speaker, and he either went to Olympus or he graduated from East about the same time that Dot did. And I remember her talking about him, back when we were living out there.
It wasn't Stephen Covey.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yeah,
Stephen
yeah,
Covey.
he's super famous. He's incredibly famous.
Yeah, when you said famous, I was like, the only one I can think
That's
of is Stephen
exactly
Covey.
who I was trying to think of. And I don't know if you want to, if it's worthwhile to
Yeah, I can.
research it. You can find out if he's in there, but I'm thinking maybe he
to
went
a
to
different-
East High School, but she knew him, through some of their activities.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
state
he's in-
dances or something.
Yeah, he's incredibly famous.
Well,
He looks like he's not in her graduating class.
Well, Logan has been calling some people. So he called his branch president from the MTC and said, what can you tell me about my grandmother? And he said, she was tall. And Logan was like, yeah. And then he said, let me ask my wife. My wife probably knew it better. So he said, honey, what do you remember about Dorothy Walton? And the wife hollers back, she was tall.
She was a doll, too, a tall doll.
And she wasn't that tall. That's what I told Logan. I said, she was only 5'8". I mean, it wasn't like she was 6'4".
When we were living, when I was in the Army in Hawaii,
Mhm.
Sally came over there to live with us.
Mhm.
And she got a job at Tripler Hospital, receptionist, secretary, whatever. And that's where she met Jim Bennett.
Mhm.
He was in the Navy in Hawaii, and they got hooked up and ended up getting married in our ward.
Cool.
And do you remember the story? Something about the
Like the
cake?
cake?
Yeah. I forgot now exactly what it was, but I was helping transport the cake, and it's probably one of those 3-tiered And here I go, and I just about dumped the whole thing on the floor. I think it did maybe fall back and touch my clothes or whatever, which was no.
They just turned the cake so that was toward the back, and then it was fine. But yeah, it almost got spilled, but Daddy saved the day, and it only got mushed on one side.
That's the most stressful time of a wedding, I think.
That was in the middle of the island. That where y'all
Pretty
were?
much, yeah. You know, there are a bunch of islands.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was
We got
big.
married on Oahu.
Oh, yeah, well, this was Oahu also.
Yeah.
Honolulu, see, we lived out at Schofield Barracks when I first got there.
Mhm.
Then we lived at Fort Shafter,
Mhm.
and Tripler is, I would think, pretty much in the middle.
By
Where did y'all get married?
in Laie.
On the
That's
North
way
Shore.
up on the
Yeah.
North Shore, the
Yeah.
church is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we
Church.
had a reception at Turtle Bay Resort on the very northern point of the island.
I don't remember it being there.
I'm pretty
Could've-
sure it wasn't.
could've
It
been.
looked, yeah.
You
looked
know, there were a
good.
lot of military bases, Barbers Point and the Poly Lookout, and of course down around Diamond Head, and
Mhm.
I can't remember all the locations, but we heard that y'all went over there and got married so that none of us could come.
But
We
see,
wanted you to fly out.
It probably would be a fun vacation for everybody. Hey,
Well,
come
he
see
said
us
we
in-
got a room for you to stay, and I said, man, I can't go to Hawaii.
Do you
But
remember
anyway.
taking pictures of us at the temple? Kurt and I are sitting on a bench looking so angelic, and for the moment at least. And then there's some of me and Jamie toddling down this little covered area.
Yeah, I've seen some of those, and there's one, I think it was in Hawaii, of you wearing my coat.
Yeah,
It was,
I think that might be Temple Square.
oh, really?
I think
In
it
Salt
is
Lake?
Temple Square, but yeah,
Anyway,
it's like
it was
rainy.
sprinkling
And,
rain or whatever, and I
Yeah.
took my coat. And she's a little squirt here. She couldn't-
I look really happy with it on.
You should have been. I was going to get wet.
But then we've got pictures of Logan and Kristen at that same temple under that walkway. It looks a lot better now than it did 50 years ago, 55 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
somewhere
it's neat.
I've seen pictures of Grandma and Grandpa Walton. We were down at, what would you call that?
Waikiki.
Pineapple Farm?
It was on Waikiki, but it would be like Fort DeRussy or Fort, in other words, the military had a recreational area in there
Mhm.
that the private people would have loved to get their hands on because it was,
Prime property,
Nice
prime
beach.
real estate.
Yep.
Well, let me tell you one more story. So Logan called this one man, no, he called Marjorie, who was Mama's maid of honor in the wedding, a little girl, Marjorie Husbands. And when Logan called her, she's 81, and she said, I don't even remember
Going
being
to
at that
that
wedding. But she was the maid of honor.
well, y'all could cut her a little slack for that.
I mean, you know, she hasn't been in contact with Mom in all these years, but
Yeah, Marjorie Husbands.
so she was Mama's maid of honor, and then Sally was the junior bridesmaid.
I really don't remember her. I should, but I don't. There's a girl, well, there are 2 or 3 girls that were your mama's friends, and if I saw their name, I would recognize it. Heidi somebody was one of them.
We'll look her up.
See, that's the flat top.
Nice.
Well, Marjorie told this funny story. She said she was dating a young man in high school, and she and Mama were best friends, and so they wanted to go on a double date. So Marjorie asked her boyfriend to set Mama up with somebody so they could go on a double date. But Marjorie told her boyfriend, now Dorothy is smart, and she's beautiful, and you got to get her a good boy to go on a date with, because Dorothy doesn't suffer fools. So don't get her.
Dorothy doesn't what?
Doesn't suffer fools.
Oh,
So,
how'd you wind up with me?
so Marjorie's boyfriend found some boy that he thought was a real winner and told this young man how smart Dorothy was, and you know, he needed to be on his top game to take this girl out. So the poor boy was trying to impress Mama that night, and he was using big words to try to impress her, and the word he kept using all night long was indubitably. And by the end of the night, Mama had had it, and she was not ever going out with him
She
again.
was not impressed with his indubitability or whatever.
Isn't that hilarious that poor little boy liked her and was trying to impress her by using indubitably, but it backfired. Mama wasn't going for it.
Well, do you ever remember her singing any songs about peanut on the railroad track? or Bill Grogan's goat.
Yes. Bill Grogan's goat was feeling fine. ate 3 red shirts from off the line. Bill took a stick, gave him a whack, and tied him to the railroad track.
Exactly.
The whistle blew, the train grew nigh. Bill Grogan's goat was doomed to die.
Exactly.
Something of awful pain coughed up those shirts
gave-
and flagged the train.
He gave 2 groans of awful pain, coughed up the
those
shirts and flagged the train.
I remember the song. I don't remember her singing it, but
Well,
it's got to be in there somewhere from her singing it.
Her, I thought that Ruth maybe used to sing it to y'all or sing it to Dot, but the other one is just dumb. A peanut sat on a railroad track. His heart was all aflutter. Around the bend came the railroad train. Toot, toot, peanut butter.
Oh.
What is Heidi's name?
Well, what Mama wrote in her journal about you was that you were so handsome and you talked so cute. So that's
She hadn't run into any Southern boys.
that was better than that beat indubitably any day.
Golly, they had a big class.
Yeah, it is.
See, that meant 2 pages like that would take care of our whole class. But Olympus was one of the more elite schools along with East. And in Headland, we didn't have a choice because that's the only one we had.
So was Russ's mission president in her grade or a year younger? Or?
A year or 2 young.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of neat too.
It's like Heidi Elgren or Heidi, I don't think it started with an E. And she may not have been in the same class.
I can look for it real quick.
Well, I'm almost to the end, so let me,
Let's see if I can find her in the junior yearbook.
oh.
Kristen,
Yes.
if you look across the river over there, just to the right of those towers,
Yes.
you can't see the towers from where you are.
Oh, okay. There's more to the. Okay, yeah, those ones.
Yeah, those ones. Just to the right of those houses on the other side, that's where we lived when Logan was born.
Great. Yeah, so Julie was saying that they take the boat and go back and forth and so hard to drive all the way around.
Yeah, it was so, and when the kids were so little, they just were so excited. They just,
Yeah, it was like a
Grandpa's
big-
coming to get us in the boat.
So fun.
But yeah, that's where we lived when Logan was born. That we brought him home from the hospital to that house across the river.
And that is a nuclear plant you're looking at.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
nuclear
Browns
plant.
Ferry Nuclear.
Okay, right, so right there?
Yep, that's our power plant.
Very cool. Yeah, nuclear energy is supposed to be good.
It was once the largest nuclear plant in the world.
Okay.
And then they built another one in Japan or somewhere that was
Yeah.
bigger.
Dad, you said we have some Arnold cousins. How are the Arnolds our cousins? Who are they married to? Or do you
Let me
remember?
think.
Heidi Shaw.
I don't think so. Let me see. No, I don't think that's the one I was thinking of.
I'll find another one.
Wait a minute. Grandma Walton. Ethel was an Arnold.
Right, that's what I said. Do we have Arnolds on both sides?
I didn't know we had it on. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. Okay. Yes, we do.
Because you had said something about
Yeah,
Arnold's
yeah,
on
yeah,
this
yeah,
side.
yeah. Okay. The way we got them on our side is in Raintree, Jimmy Rain's subdivision up there. Fred Arnold. Fred Arnold was his daddy. Joy Camp was his mother. And Corrine Camp
Okay.
was grandmother's
Joy Camp.
sister.
Fred Arnold is Fred Arnold Joy Camp's dad?
Joy
No.
Camp's husband.
Husband. Okay, because I know Co. So
Yeah.
and so Joy is Co's baby.
Only child.
And the funny thing about that, I was thinking about her when I was looking at this paperwork. I thought Co was my Aunt Co. As a little girl, I'd get in the car with Nana. We'd go pick up Aunt Co. She always had on a dress and some pretty jewelry and
Like
fancy,
Ruby
purse.
Kennington and Fran Van, the same mold.
beautiful, precious lady. And we would go pick up Aunt Co. And I thought she was my Aunt Co. And then when I'm looking at this paperwork, I'm like, that was Nana's Aunt Co. It wasn't even your Aunt
She
Co.
was the youngest child in the family. In Grandmother Van's family.
So precious. Yeah, let's see what year she was born. She was born in 1901. So she wasn't that much older than Nana.
20 years.
Yeah, she seemed to me about Nana's age. You know, they both had white hair. They both had dresses. They dressed the same. And I just thought they were about the same age. And I didn't realize Aunt Co wasn't my Aunt Co. You know, I don't know what I was thinking.
Logan, anybody show you the pictures up there? You can post. It won't take but a few minutes.
Okay, so Joy married an Arnold. That's how the Arnolds came to us. Okay. Yeah, because I knew how the Arnolds did on the other
Yeah, I've
side.
seen that one of your mom's.
Well, see, that one right yonder, that's grandmother Van's house that we were telling you about a while
okay.
ago.
Yeah.
Came across the stile fence to the back side of it. Yeah, there's mom. That's the house, same house.
Okay.
This is Granddaddy Van
Okay.
that I never knew.
Okay.
That is Mama holding me.
Okay.
That is Mama Kate and Pap, Daddy's parents.
Okay.
And then the most interesting, well, of course, this is the same bunch right here. I might as well show you that.
Yeah.
That's Emily, Felix, called Bump, Jack. No, that's Jack, Bumps, Felix, Emily, Kate Helen, May, Mama, and Jim.
Nice.
Edith is not in there. She might have been dead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there were 9 of them. See?
Okay.
Now, the funny story is this picture over here. Granddaddy Van, well, this photographer came to the door and wanted to know if he wanted their pictures taken. And he said, yeah, but you need to give us a few minutes. Why don't you go on down the street and, you know, take care of some other folks and then come back? Well, if you look real carefully, some of them are barefoot.
Yeah.
That's Uncle Jack, Uncle Sam. I think Uncle Sam's standing on a brick. That's Mama,
Okay.
Jim, Emily, Edith, and Uncle Bumps. But anyway,
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this picture before.
why don't you get it out so you can take a better picture if you want
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
But now that is a classic right there. And if you hear, see, May and Kate Helen weren't even born then.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking on ancestry.com, and so I've seen that picture of your mama, and I've seen this one of your mama holding you.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I've not seen. I don't think this one's on ancestry.com, so I'll put it
Okay.
up there. Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
The next time when y'all come,